Hey, it's a great day today. So much to do. Good to see everybody, sort of. Haven't seen anybody yet, but... do you like waffles? No, I don't like waffles. All right. I'm going to morning, guys. Oh. All these definitions. C, JSON, YAML. Good, because we got to cover all that. Install good old Node.js. God damn it. We played around with that a lot yesterday. We decided to go with Deno for the JavaScript section. We're just getting for that part of it, and then we'll switch over to the web browser. So much work just to get this organized. You know why? Because there's so much to learn. I swear to God, if I do nothing more with my life except for get that organized, things will be good. Come up with the idea of a concept. Oh, that sounds weird, but believe it or not, you need it. Concepts and tasks and stuff. The biggest problem we have with all this stuff with open credentialing and all the material that's all redundant and some of it's wrong and everything is we don't have any way to classify it. There's not a universal way to classify the execution of tasks. How's it going, Gana? We have job postings that list out the tasks we have that you need to know. We have somebody says, okay, prove you know how to do it. Okay, watch me do this, right? We have knowledge and concepts and abilities that are sometimes innate that have to be there in order to accomplish the task, but there's no quantifiable way to measure all the tasks involved in any particular role that you're assigned to do in life. Any particular occupations are just collections of roles. So it is very, very, very true to say that education is the science and process of programming human brains. That's what it is. In fact, the more I get into understanding how to organize the knowledge required to pass a beginner boost or a CS 101 or anything, the more I struggle to organize how to capture that knowledge and how to share it, the more I end up writing code. And I'm not talking about, shell or something. I'm talking about writing code, like designing code. We're going to cover this week. Yes, it's a big one. This week is a big one. I have a little bit of a dilemma because we did not finish shell. We didn't get to arrays. We didn't get to traps. We didn't get to associative arrays, which are particularly interesting. We didn't do anything with asynchronous programming. And so I'm a little conflicted. I'm not going to do that stuff. It's really hard for me to not do that stuff. But I'm expecting, and I'm starting to get the hunch that nobody's doing any reading. It's just like people aren't actually reading the book. They're just trying to come here and learn from what I say. And if you're doing that, you'll never learn it. You'll never learn it, because there's no way I'm going to cover everything. Not in the short amount of time I have, even in 3 hours a day. So if you are not actively reading and doing projects for at least 8 hours a day, including the time with me, you will never keep up. And that's fine. If you can't keep up, that's fine. There's going to be another one. But the thing about the boost is that in order to get through it, I'm actually questioning the premise of the boost right now a little bit. In order to get through the boost, you have got to seriously dedicate pretty much your whole life for 4 months to learning this stuff. And there's probably, I would suspect that the number of people who can actually do that, yeah, I'm doing like coding and practicing, right? And that's good, because you need to do that. But if you're skimming the book to get the concept because you don't want to waste time reading it all, that's perfectly fine, as long as you are able to do it. And that's really, really important, because that's fundamentally what you're going to be tested on. And I'm not going to test you. Your job's going to test you. Your next occupation is going to test you. So if you don't know how to perform, if you don't have proof that you can do those things, and that's why I continue to come back to the mnemonic mini projects, and I actually cleaned that up a little bit more even today for Bash. And this is why I'm a little bit conflicted, because I actually went through this, and it's taking everything in me not to finish out these mini projects, because that's where you're going to really learn. Once the mini projects are outlined and there's a walkthrough for each mini project, I already know that you're going to master this stuff, because I've seen other people master everything I've ever taught with the mini project format. And so I'm kind of like torn, because I need to finish these walkthroughs, and part of finishing the walkthrough is linking to specific skills and tasks as you do it, so you can build on those. And I can list them kind of in Greek. This is what we do. We do variable, assign a variable. That's the task. Create a script. That's the task. Touch a file. That's a task. And all of those tasks, how do you organize them? How do you keep track of which projects have which tasks in them? How, it would be really great to go through and see, I have this database or something, and I can say, here are all of the mini projects that hit on this specific task. And then, this is the original concept of SkillStack when I made the app, is that you would have this sort of database of tasks and stuff that you build yourself, or that everybody kind of contributes into. This is the task. This is the operation. A task is actually an operation. And then here's the method for accomplishing it. And there could be multiple methods for accomplishing that task. But having that as a database, and believe it or not, this all feeds into today's conversation about knowledge management. Do you have all the tasks written up in pseudocode? Hell no. Do you have any idea how many tasks there are? There's literally hundreds of thousands of tasks that have to be captured. So at best, I can cover the tie-in tasks, and then we could write the pseudocode and do all of that. But the first, before you can, so as I said earlier in this just today, the how you write a task in pseudocode is a critical decision, because you're going to be putting thousands and thousands of data points into this thing. And once again, YAML to the rescue, which is kind of a segue into what we're going to talk about this week. This week is all about managing knowledge. And so we have a lot of, it's a really packed statement. What is knowledge? What is it? Is it a list of, is it pseudocode that describes our processes, how to do a particular task? Is it a bunch of definitions? Is it a bunch of concepts? Is it, does fiction count as in knowledge? So I don't want to get too deep into the weeds on this, but unless you can really get a handle on how to organize knowledge, and that goes for the whole world, not just us individually, we're going to be struggling. And if you look around right now, we are struggling. The whole world has massive amounts of knowledge, and the people who are getting all the money are the ones who help us make sense of that knowledge. The problem is the people that are helping us make sense of the knowledge for free are also squandering and using us as products. So they can mine us for our knowledge and then sell shit to us. Sorry, that's the only swear word for today. But that is where we are. Our number one tools, our top tools for managing human knowledge are all run by corporations who make 90% of their money from marketing. And that is not an exaggeration. You can go watch the TED Talk on that. So unless the world wakes up, and Tim Berners-Lee and his gang and CERN, they came up with a way for us to manage our knowledge more effectively. The original mouse was invented by a guy who took up electrical engineering because he didn't find any meaning in his life and he wanted to change the world, and decided the best way to change the world was to connect people so that they could exchange their knowledge between one another. Yeah. So, and that was the reason he existed. So technology, it's literally called information technology, IT. It's not just information though, it's knowledge. And so everything we are doing in tech is related to knowledge and information, and yet we still struggle with how to quantify, how to manage that knowledge. And as individuals, we struggle even more because we are left to use the tools that are given to us, the search engines, the Microsoft Word documents. We don't have a choice, at least we haven't in the past, as to what we do. So people get innovative and they start doing their own thing. So it's going to be very hard for me this week because this is a topic that goes to my core of being. It's like, this is a topic that really, really gets under my skin, as well as I get really passionate about it, because the biggest problem with information technology right now is we are not managing it properly. We are not organizing it well. We are holding good knowledge hostage behind paywalls, and the whole world is suffering because of it. You could make the argument that the reason we're in this mess right now, a big part of it is I hope we're learning from it. You can make the argument that we are in this big mess right now because of a lack of education. Nelson Mandela said, if you want to change the world, educate people, because people, or help people get educated. You can't really, it's the thing, you can't teach anybody anything. They have to, it's not like you can open their head and pour it in. They have to do the active, learning in order to learn anything. And we have so many people who are not learning for so many reasons, not the least of which is the ability for everybody to check out and do whatever they want because they don't value knowledge anymore at all. I mean, just look at teacher salaries versus basketball player salaries. I mean, humanity does not value knowledge. In fact, it's demonized. If you go to a school and learn stuff, it'll make you not believe in whatever God you believe in, and therefore it's evil. So it's almost impossible to not broach on religious and political topics when you talk about knowledge, because knowledge decays, it goes away. We have entropy. I'm going to talk about that too. We actually usually, on the first day that I have any private mentoring, we talk about how entropy affects your brain. Money is greater than knowledge, unfortunately. But it is to a lot of people, but it really isn't. So, we have the thing that's really ironic, and I mean, this is the end of my rant, okay? But the thing that's really ironic is we live in a time when the free exchange of knowledge and information has never been easier, and yet we have totally screwed it up. I got tasked with reformatting a PowerPoint slideshow. My inner Engelbart cried. You know what I'm talking about? Hey, Artebeck's wife, I am actually on teaching a class right now, or whatever you want to call it.
Fun.
Bye.
Bye.
I don't know what that was about. She must have, I think she just had a... I thought I was in a free and open country here in America. And we're all getting totally manipulated. And if you guys don't think we're being manipulated, go watch check your credit card statement. She just bought something. No. She probably just talked to a friend or something. But if you get if you have money, you're successful. So yeah, and I mean it gets political really quickly. And I guess it's probably, I hope she didn't see me and said, you need to chill out. Because she knows that this is a topic that runs really deep with me and makes me just like viscerally angry. It makes me really shake because our whole world is collapsing around us. And the primary reason it's collapsing is because our priorities are not on knowledge. Our priorities are on money and distraction. Those are the two top priorities right now, money and distraction. And the epitome of that is 12-year-olds whose only goal in life is to become a game streamer. They want the money and they want the distraction combined into one package. So, and then you have Twitch. You have some of the best education and the best knowledge available in the science and tech stream, and it has 200 possible people on any given moment. Meanwhile, any one of the gaming categories has how many million of people in it at any given moment. So I'm not putting down games. What I'm trying to put down is that our society has accepted this idea that knowledge isn't valuable. Well, you're not that person. You are here to take control of knowledge, of your own skills, be able to perform tasks, and to apply all of that in an organized way towards changing this fucking circus of a world right now, because no one's going to fix it if you don't fix it. And I mean that. I'm sorry, I'm getting a little triggered. No one is going to fix this world unless you get off your ass and do it. Because who's going to do it? So all of us guys, and I'm speaking to me too, we have got to stop being complacent, stop being angry, and getting busy. And that means organizing the knowledge. Okay, I'm done. All right, so let's do it. What do we need to do first? We need to organize the knowledge, and that's the hard part, and that's what we're here to talk about this week, and that's what I continually struggle with. So how do you know when you know something? What do you learn? All that stuff. So let's start small. Let's bite off a breadcrumb. Let's bite off a breadcrumb of what it is that we need to do. Okay, so the first thing you need to do is be able to write. Okay, so the most fundamental, and I'm going to start putting this in. I'm going to try to keep the updated schedule. See, again, I struggle with it just like everybody else because there's so much knowledge out there. If you're interested in how our attention spans have been distorted in modern times, I'd highly recommend the book, The Shallows, How the Internet is Changing How we Think, Read, and Remember. Today is Markdown Notes Day. We're going to go through Markdown Notes really fast right now. Again, I'm assuming you're doing a little work on your own. I'm also discovering that that's not happening, which doesn't surprise me because in 7 years, every time I assign something to do for at home, nobody does it if it's optional. They only do it if somebody holds a bat over their head, which is how our education system works, which shouldn't have to be that way. Please, you are not those people. You're people who are fundamentally, internally, interested in learning. You don't need an excuse to learn. Okay. Markdown. Okay. Awesome. If you're using Markdown. You're doing your homework. All right. So The Shallows. I want to write that book down really quick. Actually, it's in my notes, so I'll go back to the IRC and go read it. So the reason I'm always mangling with my we're going to talk about Markdown really quick. So let's jump right in. And I realized the RWXGG is not updated. As I said, this knowledge thing, I went through and created, just so you know what I'm doing, so you don't know I'm sitting on my butt. Look, I went through here and I made an entire map of the site, and I mapped out where things are, where the articles are, where the courses are, and all of this stuff is going to be search indexed on the site in a meta.json file that you can then go look in. It'll also automatically tell you the latest changes to the site. These are all things that by the end of the week, my goal is to have those all finished. They're all things that I already have built in Go, and they're part of the thing that I'm porting back over, and I'm also making exercises in Shell so that you guys can learn how these things work while you're learning how to program in Shell, which is why we're supposed to have finished programming in Shell last week. So I'm just as ambitious as everybody else. I bite off a little bit more on my plate. Point is, by the end of the week, you should know how to write notes in Markdown, how to your system understand those links. Yeah, and then what they mean, how to organize what you're feeling and thinking. My biggest challenge over the last few years is that I've gone through at least four iterations, not one every year, but about 4 iterations of my knowledge base. I've started out, I've written like 2 or 3 books up to like 200, 300 pages, and then I threw it all out because I said this is useless because it's all outdated already. And so then I put it back all into writing a knowledge base. Well, what's a knowledge base? Okay, so let's talk about that. A knowledge base is just a place for you to collect your knowledge. It's just a way, sustainable way for you to capture the knowledge in a way that can be used forever, and that can be shared easily, and that can be rendered and into any other possible format you could imagine. And the way to do that, the way to capture that knowledge, I'm overwhelmingly convinced at this point, having done it in many different ways and formats. I mean, I've written everything. I've written man pages. I've written Perl pod documentation. I've written restructured Python stuff. I've written ViewPress pages. I've written GitHub flavored Markdown. I've done it all. This is not just a blog post, and we're going to talk about why. But Markdown is definitely the place to write it. Why? And I'm going to make the case for this really quickly. So Pandoc Markdown, or Markdown in general. In fact, if you can go to the page, you can go read it. You can go to the page at rwx.gg. Here's the map, by the way. But I was just trying to tell you what I was doing when I was organizing the stuff. It's also why you don't have the most recent version, because when you reorganize your data, sometimes you have to fix all your links and stuff. And there's one thing that I haven't automated yet, and that is resetting all of the links. There's like highly intricately, almost like neurons, interconnected knowledge nodes, I call them, these little subdirectories. And if you move something, just like in a symbolic link in Unix, everything breaks. So you have to have a way for that symbolic link to be resolved. And the one thing that has been absent from every other system, every wiki system, every knowledge management like Perl pod or restructure test, is the ability for you to automatically update all links in the document to the document when it moves. That does not yet exist. And if you know, I'm going to go look at my chat, but if you know of that existing, let me know. And this is why it's so much more than just a blog. What we're talking about doing is using HTML as it was intended, but not specifically HTML. What's his name, Douglas? Using hyperlinking. Hyperlinking for the win. We live in a time, and just to tell you how totally upside down our world is now, we live in a time when you are punished for linking to other sites on your webpage. This is not an exaggeration. So SEO, Google SEO, if Google wasn't already fucking the world up in other ways beyond measure, they definitely promote pages that have more inbound links, and they automatically give them a higher SEO score because they call them authoritative. Oh, everybody's linking to this page, it must be a higher ranking. And so they have actually, you can go watch these snake oil SEO people tell you how that you can fake inbound links to your site to make you an authority and push your SEO ranks. The fact that we live in a time where you have to manipulate your SEO rankings by not linking to other opinions and other content for relative comparisons and readings and getting a second opinion is a disaster. It's a disaster. And actually, Neil deGrasse Tyson talks about this in his masterclass a little bit. He talks about how Google and all of these other things are just big, massive confirmation bias engines. They show us what we want. This is why you shouldn't even touch Google. You should be using DuckDuckGo or something, even if you can't find something. Only go there if you can't find something. So because the knowledge that we're getting is one opinion. We're watching one news channel. In this age of like infinite resources, we are still honing in on one resource. I'm sorry. I got to pull myself back from the brink here because I get really triggered. Because instead of that, a true knowledge base is about knowledge. It's not about, it promotes true knowledge. And true knowledge comes about from studying many, many sources and information, not just your page. Oh, don't leave my page. I'm not going to link out because it'll reduce my SEO score. Screw that. Seriously, screw that. The world needs more outbound linking. In fact, in a good knowledge base, when you go to somebody's page, you should be able to, I don't want this to be a 3-hour rant. I swear to God, I was really hoping not to make it a 3-hour rant. But the rest of the week is obviously going to be the nuts and bolts of everything. I swear it. But I just really want people to see how important this is. So if you go out to let's go out to any page right now. So like Lang Bash, okay? And so all of my stuff And this is the way I suggest you do a knowledge base. So maybe the answer that you have for bash isn't here. Maybe the command for bash is not on this page. Well, why not make all of our titles automatically do a DuckDuckGo search so that we can go look up other sources? The fact that I put that title on my page just reduced my SEO rank to 0 probably. Because why? Because I'm linking out a lot. I'm linking out to other pages as much as I can. I'm linking out to videos about it. This is the whole point of HTML. The whole point of the World Wide Web was to promote hyperlinking between resources provided by the scientists at CERN. And yet we have gone completely against that because of who? Google, again. Google has destroyed our world of knowledge by forcing us to think about becoming an authority and getting more money and getting more advertising revenue. Every single priority Google has set forth for the world is destroying knowledge. And I don't care. I'll tell you what, if you work for Google, never tell me about it. Okay? Because I really don't want to know. I'm like, because they are actually destroying knowledge. For the sake, why don't I have a Patreon? I actually do have a Patreon. And where can we go to learn how to rant? Shut up. It's not fair. That ranks on a search engine that ranks on the bibliography. Wouldn't that be great? 10K free mailbox. But damn, that, you know what? It pays. You sacrifice your entire privacy for $15. That's how much you're worth to Google. Yeah, I gotta stop talking about it. Come back to Ted Nelson's idea constantly. Yes, I'm glad you brought it up again. Ted Nelson was the idea. That's where the idea of hyperlinking came from. And what I'm going to suggest, so this entire week is about 1, managing your knowledge, capturing your knowledge, and 2, about sharing and exchanging your knowledge with others. And the biggest way to exchange and reference knowledge of others is not necessarily bibliography. Those are great references. It's hyperlinking. It's something as simple as hyperlinking. And we don't do it. Thank God DuckDuckGo exists. I mean, you know, it's kind of hard to not have a bias in your stuff. But yeah. So let's go back to is Ted still actually YouTubing? We should probably go look at that. All right. So let's get into some specifics. I've gotten you really all amped up. Hopefully you'll want to help save the world. But I am going to give you just a little preview here of what I hope over the next 2 years, I think it's probably going to take me that long at least, that we can rebuild a knowledge network. We can make, I know it's very ambitious, but I think that if we put our heads together, we can actually rebuild the knowledge world. We can create a README world. And I've registered, you'll see me using README all over the place, but I've registered the domain README World some time ago. I've been thinking about this for more than 6 years. The first iteration of this was called the Essential Web. That was like in 2015. I called it the Knowledge Net later. And now these days I've been calling it the README World because README is kind of colloquial. It's what people think of. But the README World is a world where we, to a large extent, and I'm not just trying to be the old guy who likes it better than when it started out. I'm trying to preserve the value of knowledge exchange, which has been lost in our current web. And I'm not the only one who thinks that. I mean, you can go back and you can see tons of videos, including Tim Berners-Lee, who's like trying to start other initiatives, but he's just not doing very well. I wish he was. So anyway, sub to the wrong on Patreon. Am I on game streaming? No, I'm not RWX Rob on there at all, guys. On Patreon, I'm Art Robma, but it's not really a real one. But I appreciate the effort. I will definitely get that to you. Okay, guys, let's focus on the learning for right now, besides the Patreon stuff. I really appreciate any support you can give. People have been asking how to contribute, and they're getting all ramped up. This week is the week you must master. There's no way you can get around this week. If you want to contribute to what I'm doing on the README world, you have to prove that you have mastered the skills that I'm going to talk about this week. Otherwise, you're not even a valid contributor. And it's not because you don't agree with me. It's because you don't have the skill to write. You can't write, or you can't write in Markdown, or you don't know how to hyperlink. One of those things, or you don't know what JSON and YAML are. If you don't know those things, you cannot participate in the knowledge net. You cannot participate in the README world, because those are the critical, that's the syntax of knowledge. And I'm going to make a case for that. All right, so here we go. Are the highest in their SEO audits. That's a good point, Kip. Yeah, the things that are just text and HTML. That's why actually we're gonna talk about images and where they fit in and everything. The comment rant Pandog Z showed this should be clipped and then add a commentary script the rant to keep the stream on track. Yes, that's probably true. This is not a rant that you've seen yet, I don't think, but I apologize. If you're just here to learn a few skills and stuff and go away, then you're probably in the wrong place. Because the only reason I do any of this is because I care and because I think you should care. And so if you don't know why you're doing something, then it's not worth doing to me. Anyway, so I am here to support the stream oh, nice. All right, so here we go. So the first thing we're going to do here is we're going to actually learn about Markdown. So I'm assuming, number one, that you already have a GitHub repo, or GitLab GitHub repo. You've got a notes directory, whatever. Okay. So the notes directory itself or the notes repo that you have, that already is a way for you to capture. The first thing you need to do is start capturing your knowledge. That means you have to start writing. And if you're an artist and you don't like digital things, fine, write it in a notebook. You can't share that later, but just start capturing your knowledge. You have to, and you've got to read about other stuff, but you have to write the W. We're talking about the W in RWX right now. You've got to be writing. And so how do you write? How do you do that in a way that is going to be structured? But hard to structure. It is really easy to write, but if you're not even doing that, it's like people with meditation. They're like, I can't meditate, I can't focus. Well, I'll tell you what, the number one advice for meditation is go sit there and don't say anything. That's how you start. That's how you start. And then you work on it, you get better. So the first thing you have to start doing is you have to start writing. And that it's not going to be clean. You're not going to know what to write. You're not going to know how to write. And then the first step and I suggest that writing should be done with VI. It's another good way for you to practice your Vim skills. If you want to use another editor, fine, just don't talk to me about it right now. So, and I'm going to show you why VI is absolutely the best editor. I'm not going to tell, for example, my artist wife that she has to learn VI to participate in the knowledge net or the README world. That would be stupid. Right? But it is important that the knowledge be written in a way that can be captured and shared. So I do think that usually involves a computer, even if you take notes on your iPad, which I do all the time. And then yes, it's an Apple, and yes, I love it. And then you bring it in and you go ahead and write it down and you put it someplace else. Okay. As long as you do that. Now, I'm going to make a really strong case for the format of that knowledge. And I'm going to argue that the way you should capture your knowledge right now should be Markdown. And I have to talk to you about what Markdown is, where it came from, and that's going to be the rest of this segment. We're going to cover basic Markdown, and then I'm going to kind of give you a preview of what is in Pandoc Markdown and why I believe Pandoc Markdown, which is an extension of basic Markdown, is hands down the universal standard for knowledge capture. And I'm going to make a case for that. So that's coming now. So first of all, why Markdown? Markdown is everywhere. If you haven't seen Markdown yet, it's used in Reddit, it's used in Discord, it's used in Stack Exchange, it's used to some degree in Medium. A lot of textbooks are written in it. It's used for all the READMEs and everything on GitHub and GitLab. It is hands down the most universal standard for basic knowledge capture. If you've ever done in Discord, I don't know if you guys know this. Let me show you actually. Let me show you a Discord really quick. So let me give you an really short example of where it occurs. So let's go to our thing here. It's like we can go to a Markdown section here. Do we have Markdown languages? I need to add a Markdown language if I haven't already. Oh my gosh, I don't. It technically is a language, so I'm going to go ahead and add it here. So let's add one called Markdown, and we'll go try some Markdown out. So in Markdown, it's like here is an example of JavaScript console.log some JavaScript, and you hit bam, 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 and then you get this. Here's an example of some JavaScript. So that is Markdown. Everything we just did is Markdown. Notice it was 3 backticks, by the way, and not 10. That's because that's what you should use, and it's going to come back later. But you can use something even more simple. That was backtick JavaScript, also by the way. You know, it's like, or you could do like Arch, FTW, or whatever you want to say. So you can use it for formatting. You can use it for code blocks. You can use it to all kinds of things. And this is actually one of the ways, the reasons that Discord is so superior to Slack. Slack can't do any of this. It has no notion of any of this. They built their own markup language. It's so stupid. So stupid. Hey, engineers at Slack, you're stupid. I mean, you're really stupid. I can't believe you didn't even think to use the international standard for formatting and knowledge exchange in your application. It was like such a no-brainer. How did you miss that? So anyway, so now we have, we have Markdown available in Discord. It's unfortunately not available in Twitch chat, in case you didn't notice that. But yeah, the math notation, we haven't even gotten there yet. So, this is why it's so good. It's everywhere. It's already used everywhere. In fact, the entire R language, its documentation is in Markdown. So you're like, well, what about Python? Python uses restructured tests. Perl uses Perlpod. What about man pages, right? All of those can be generated from Markdown, but you cannot generate Markdown from man pages easily. You lose resolution, it's called. You cannot generate a PDF from your Markdown. It's really easy to write. Why is this such a great syntax for knowledge? Because a couple of writers, who I'm going to give full credit right now, I'll go back to my Lang/MD is where you want to go read about this. If you want to follow along on RWXGG, go to Lang/MD, and you see invented by writers, not scientists. And that's exactly what it was. So John Gruber and Aaron Swartz, rest his soul, created Markdown. And they did it because they're podcasters and writers in 2007, I think. And let me show you their pictures. I don't have links to them here. I probably should. So much to write. But actually, watch, check this. I can go up here and just click on the link and it'll do the search for me. Yay! So this is actually a Markdown guide, which you should not follow, by the way. There are so many Markdown guides out here that are so stupid. You know why? Because they do too many things that are unnecessary. Watch, like this one, for example. This is good. That's all good. This is horrible. Never, ever, ever, ever use this. And I'm going to go through. Please just at least consider mine first and then go look at the other ones if you want to do extra stuff. Okay, but I was trying to get to, when I clicked on that link, I was trying to get to Daring Fireball, this is where the original Markdown was made. It was a Perl script and long ago. And he continues to advertise on this site. You can actually download the Perl code still. Was it 2004? Look at that. And this tells you the absolute basics of Markdown as it was originally done. It's since gone a long way from this time. And I guess John actually still does a lot of, John Gruber, he does a lot of podcasting, so I haven't listened to any of it, but he's famous for it. He was not interested in participating in any of the specifications of Markdown. I don't know why. Nobody really knows why. And so another John kind of took over, to be honest. Markdown. And so sorry. Here we go. This has a picture of John. At least they took down his picture. The original Daring Markdown. I think he actually had his picture taken down. Huh. I think he must have taken his picture down. He did have a picture for a while. That's sad. Anyway. Yeah, where'd it go? There used to be a picture here. Well, that's not hard to find. I mean, I'm trying to give you some credit here, dude. You made this amazing thing. Oh, there he is. Yeah, that's definitely him. This is a picture you usually see of him. And you know, the thing of it is about John is first and foremost as a writer and a podcaster, and so he wasn't interested in writing an RFC specification for submission to the IETF. And frankly, I wish HTML had been invented by John, because John is a writer. He cares about knowledge getting captured quickly in an organized way. He doesn't care about whether he can make $1 million on Netscape Mozilla, later, like our famous venture capitalist friend Mark Andreessen did, who basically took Tim Berners-Lee's idea, capitalized it like a good American, made $1 quadrillion off of it, and then did what he really loves, which is venture capital. So that's usually what happens to knowledge, by the way. And so we have a lot of syntaxes for this. Aaron Swartz, I'm going to give him credit. Aaron Swartz, who didn't give a crap about money, and he actually proved it by leaving Reddit after he founded it, because he was just done. And then he started petitioning for the free information, exchange of information, and then the NSA stressed him out so much he ended up killing himself. Not the NSA, the FBI, and they torment him. There's a really great documentary on Aaron's life. Aaron, I'm gonna get a little bit heartfelt right here. I would give anything for Aaron to still be here, because Aaron would be fighting this with us right now, because that was the thing that he cared about. This guy at 15 years old stood next to, a Harvard law professor, Chris Lessing, Lawrence Lessing, that's Lawrence Lessing, who helped create the Creative Commons standard for exchange of free information and knowledge. And he did that. He freed knowledge all the time, so much that it started pissing people off that were making money from it, who ultimately got to him. So let's look at this. Lawrence Lessing. So today is kind of a kickoff day, so I'm just going to let myself have a little bit of fun going into the details. So here's Chris. Here's Aaron Swartz and Lawrence Lessing. It just really tears me up, man, because he was like such a brilliant young person, and he was just snuffed out so early. And if he were here, he invented Wikipedia 5 years before it was even a thought of, because he, as a small kid, at 12, he was interested in the exchange of information and ideas. At 12, he didn't give a shit about Fortnite. You know what? He was out there actively pushing for the good of humanity, so much so that he got the attention of Harvard law professors, who they had to lower the podium so that he could speak at the podium at the Creative Commons thing. This is an inspiration to us all, and his story is just so tragic, because he was so against the times that he was snuffed out. He was snuffed out. And I have to dwell on it for a second, because he's just so awesome. Anyway, all right, let's and one of the things that he helped to create was Markdown. So he and John Gruber put that together, and that was then picked up by John JGM. And I can never remember John's full name. Sorry, John. But he's the one who created Pandoc, which you can go read about here. Installing, getting started, documentation. And so, yep. There we go. So here you go. Here's the Markdown format if you want to go see about the Markdown format. But they actually have a diagram of all the formats you can pick to go through here. All right, so that's enough introduction about all the things, where they came from, why you should care, and why you should use them. And the next, by the way, Aaron's favorite language was Python at the time. So, the right tool for the job, and the right tool for his job was Python most of the time. Hi, this is Donald who's talking. I think you forgot to mention LaTeX. Yeah, LaTeX is still going to be mentioned, I promise. Here we go. Yeah, and so, fun fact, you can document Markdown code block syntax by wrapping the code block with an extra backtick. Please don't do that ever. Don't do that. There's so many reasons not to do that. I'm going to talk about it right now. Obviously, I have to fend off some false information out there that's really going to screw you up later. Yeah, there you go. There's the caveat. It's not supported everywhere. All right, so the biggest problem that we've gotten into with Markdown is that because it's not specified, everybody has their own flavor. And that's horrible for knowledge source because nothing has a syntax. If you look at YAML or JSON, very strictly specified so that we can predictively and efficiently parse it. You do not want to add extra stuff. LaTeX is awesome, but it's not something that anybody can write in. Do you think a writer would have invented LaTeX? Hell no. It was invented by a computer scientist. And I'm not against LaTeX, but we're going to talk about how it's something you should add on later. Okay? Pandoc uses LaTeX, and that's what I'm going to get to. All right, so let's go back to the first page here. So this is, if you need to read all this, then I'm going to go ahead and I have 10 minutes left. Okay, so we have basic Markdown. So really, there are so many hundreds of different Markdown formats out there. I don't want you to get overwhelmed. There's really only 3 that matter. Okay, there is basic Markdown, which is emphasis on simplicity and compatibility. And I mean simplicity and compatibility. Does Discord let you put an extra backtick in your code block? Nope. Okay, so simplicity and compatibility. And that has to be derived from lots and lots of research about all the formats that are out there. And that's what I've been doing for all these years. The second one is the official agreement. This was spearheaded by JGM, the guy who made Pandoc. He brought everybody to the table, including GitHub, which is one of the biggest influencers of it, with their GitHub flavored Markdown, which in many ways is a disaster. But anyway, he got them all to come to the table and agree on Common Mark. So Common Mark is a big important thing that you should know. It doesn't have tables at all. It doesn't have LaTeX at all. So the fact that it's missing out those things makes it an important thing. In fact, I linked to the Common Mark tables discussion, which is hilarious. Because JGM basically says, I think we should wait on tables. What he's really saying is GitHub flavored tables suck. Mine are better. Let's just leave tables out for now. And they've never really come back to talk about it. And when you see Pandoc tables, you'll understand what I'm talking about. So anyway, and then you have the third level, which is Pandoc. Okay, now Pandoc is hands down the most powerful Markdown syntax in the world. It is so good and so powerful and allows you to use advanced techniques such as LaTeX for full textbook-like math notation, if you want it. And by the way, LaTeX is the international syntax for math notation. There's no debate about that. That has been the case for years. Every single math textbook uses it. So that is the standard. So Pandoc is the only Markdown flavor that combines full LaTeX, MathJax, KTeX support inside of it, so that a textbook can be written in Pandoc alone. It doesn't have to be written in anything else. But do you need to know all that stuff as a beginner? No. You just need to know that you're going to use the syntax of Pandoc so that when you grow, when your knowledge grows and you need to use those things. I've got students who use math notation to take professional notes in their math classes. You should see them. They look like textbooks when they're entered to the webpage. It's insane. None of that is supported in GitHub flavored Markdown. None of it is in whatever, there's like so many different flavors. So we're going to just learn basic and then we're going to learn Pandoc. And so these are the flavors. In fact, I can in 8 minutes, I can go through all of basic Markdown pretty much. So I'm going to try. Artivix Rob, thanks. Good to see you. You can draw graphs in LaTeX. Yes, you can draw anything in LaTeX. You don't need to draw graphs anyway. Why would you need to? I mean, graphs, if you're going to do that, just use an image. Use an SVG image. We're going to talk about graphing and associations and all that stuff. That's actually not, that knowledge is not best captured by an image. It's best captured by YML and then rendered from YML. Would you recommend writing in a long form piece, a dissertation or Markdown? Yeah, absolutely. In fact, there are people who have done dissertations in it. In fact, if you read, so if you're really interested in this and you are a higher end academic, I strongly suggest you join the Pandoc mailing list, because there are academics, specifically a lot of academics, talking about academic writing in that mailing list all the time. And some of them, in order to do some of their academic writing, they will even write a Lua plugin because they have another tag that they want to add. So the biggest thing about Pandoc you need to take away is that beyond it being the world's greatest reference, you got to understand too something about academics. Academics don't do discordance conflict. They have it, but they a lot of the academic community and that kind of scientific community, they still operate on mailing lists. That's where they are. There's still a lot of really high end knowledge from people who are using mailing lists because they have to formulate their thoughts better. They have to they're eternally saved in a thread someplace else. They don't, generally speaking, they don't buy into the Discord, Reddit sort of ecosystem. They're more traditional and using and that. So if you do actually want to connect, that's one way you'd have to do that. What's going on? All right, so I have 5 minutes. I think I'm going to save for the next segment. I will cover all of basic Markdown in the next segment. If you'd like to read ahead, please go to rwx.gg/lang/md. And you can go there and read the review of everything I just covered. Why not wikis? Why not? What about latex? It's fully supported in Pandoc. What about restructured tests? You didn't really ask that, did you? RST lost because it's so damn horrible and idiotically designed. I should probably change that. That's why it's so good to not have a book in print. If you know how passionate I get, if I actually wrote something while I was full of coffee and ranty, how am I going to change it? I can't go change it. So I permanently have to stand by those words and get, trolled forever about it. This is why I choose to keep my knowledge in a knowledge base like this, where it's fluid and it can change. So anyway, go back here and click on basic. And in fact, I'm going to go ahead and take a break right now. I think this is a good moment. Again, I only blew one segment on ranty introduction. Okay, so give me a break. But if anything, I hope you come out of this day not only being charged up to do this, but having the specific skills to start writing in Markdown today. And tomorrow, if not today, we'll out this time. Tomorrow, if not today, I'm going to show you how to instantly convert that into HTML. And it's just one small step to publish that into the web automatically. That's what you see me do every day. When I save something to the thing, I hit save, and now it fills up. I want to have a debate on the day 3 about how to resolve the traditional publishing process with the traditional software development continuous integration process, which is something we need to talk about. You'll see why, because when you start keeping your notes this way, you'll end up starting to make like a dozen commits a day, and so you have to ask yourself, do I want my GitHub or my GitLab stream of commits to just be a bunch of saves to my notes? And how do you avoid that, right? And there are some ways to do that, creating a separate group and things like that, or like saving up all your commits and just doing a single push, which is another way to do it. All of those are fine ways to do it. So anyway, I'm going to take a little break. I'll be back at 12:10. Well, I don't think the solution is to learn multiple markup languages. The solution to the world's problem right now is that we need a standard, and the standard has already been defined, and people just don't know about it. So we need to tell people. Let me take a break, and I'm going to put some fish on the screen. All right.
Hey, brother, what you thinking? Leave that on record spinning. You feel the rhythm going. Legs ain't got time to lay low. Your knees are bending, so it's time to get up and let go. Hey, mama, how's it going? Can see your body moving. Don't leave the party dying. Keep booty shaking, you know your head has no right to say no. Tonight it's ready, set, go. Baby, can you move around the rhythm so we can get with and jump around and get us a rock and roll round? Let's countdown, body, body coming with the super hottie. Let's go, no slow, hell no. Baby, can you move around the rhythm? 'Cause you know I'm living in the fast lane. Speed up, it ain't no game. Just turn up all the beams when I come upon the scene. Hey, brother, what you thinking? That good old sound is ringing. They don't know what they're missing. Legs ain't got time to lay low. Your knees are bending, so it's time to get up and let go. Hey, brother, listen steady. Put down your brick, you ready. It's hot when things get messy. Keep booty shaking, you know your head has no right to say no. Tonight it's ready, set, go. Baby, can you move around the rhythm so we can get with and jump around and get us a rock and roll round? Let's countdown, body, body coming with the super hottie. Let's go, no slow, hell no. Baby, can you move around the rhythm? 'Cause you know I'm living in the fast lane. Speed up, it ain't no game. Just turn up all the beams when I come upon the scene.
Oh my God, I went so long. I went so long over. That's what happens when you go outside and start having coffee and chat with my wife. I'm so sorry I'm late, but let's get to it. Let's do some basic markdown, okay? So, we're gonna jump to it. We got plenty of time to get through basic markdown right now. It takes actually about 20 minutes. In fact, it's so fast that I'm gonna go ahead and just write it along with you. So if you want it, this is something I'm actually gonna go through because I feel it's so important that you learn it, and I'm gonna show you how to do the different ones. The real one this time, did you really? Thank you for that. I'll have to change the name on that. All right, so here we go. Let's go to Markdown, Lang, MD, and we're going to go into basic here, and I'm going to just give an example, sample.md. So I'm actually going to do all of this with you. I'm going to go through and kind of recreate the experience of learning how to do some Markdown just by making a thing. Okay. Again, all of this is on rwx.gg/markdown. Everything is outlined here. So the first thing we're going to do is paragraphs. So sample.md. Generally speaking, you want to name files readme.md, all caps readme.md. This is detected automatically. In fact, I'm going to go ahead and do that. I'm going to make a directory. So this is how you should normally do things. It's okay to make a file.md, but it's usually better to make a directory and put a file called readme.md in that directory. The reason for that is because all caps readme.md is officially recognized by GitHub, GitLab, and a bunch of other places as being the thing to render. So when you go to GitLab and you go see, for example, this page, gitlab.com, RWX, let's see, this is rwx.gg. This is where the README term comes from because it's used so frequently all over the place. In fact, the name of this repo is all caps README for that purpose. But as you can see, the readme.md file that's here, this is the website, this is our main front page website, is rendered automatically, including the front matter YML, which we'll learn on another day this week. So we have, and you can see some of the Markdown is not supported because I'm using Pandoc Markdown. This is called a span in Pandoc. It's not supported by Common Mark, so it's not rendered there, but we can live. That's not going to hurt anybody. But the links here are, the other because we linked properly, and I'm going to show you how to do the links properly. I can actually use GitLab or GitHub as sort of a web browser for my content. These links actually go to the other pages in the knowledge base. And I don't even have to put a website out there. I can just use this, and a lot of people do actually. A lot of people will make knowledge bases that are just README files and directories that use readme.md. So this has been an explanation of why to use readme.md, because it's automatically rendered for any subdirectory. All right, so back to the code where we're going to write it here. And here we go. So there we go. I've got a directory called sample. I'm going to cd into sample. I'm going to use VI for this, or Vim. Every time I use VI, I'm actually using Vim, just so you know. Actually, let's do this. Touch readme.md. Open up readme.md. And have a nice empty file. So let's just start out with a paragraph. This is a paragraph. And here is another really long paragraph that is way longer than 80 characters. It has multiple sentences in it. And you see how I am, my Vim does have spell check, yes. So I got lots of spelling errors, I know, but it does work. You can do it. If you, by the way, you probably want to add the Pandoc Markdown plugin. If you want to do this, we can talk about that on another day, maybe Friday. All right. So what I want to show you here is that paragraphs are separated by blank lines. It's really important you have that extra line between things. These are called blocks, but paragraphs are separated. Another thing you want to notice here is that the paragraph, even though Markdown allows you to do this, don't do it. It allows that for legacy reasons, because in the old days, it would look really ugly. In a modern world, though, this is really bad. So especially if you're using Tmux, let's say you want to just do a quick edit on this file. As soon as you start doing this, look what happens. Okay, so yeah, but it's not the latest. If you want to get the latest Pandoc, I can show you how to do that. We're not to that point yet, guys. So we're going to do Pandoc rendering tomorrow, next week. So see how ugly this is. So this is a change in opinion for me. It happened about 5 years ago. I now use single big long lines as paragraphs because they wrap properly in a world where Tmux is regularly used, or Panes in Vim or Emacs or whatever. All modern editors have some natural wrapping capability. So the need to have all of your lines wrapped is not a thing anymore, and that is part of the original. This is why I'm going through these. You kind of don't know what you should use with Markdown because there's so many options out there. So I'm trying to remove those options and give you some consistency so you can learn it quickly and just be safe, knowing that what you're doing is going to work everywhere. So that's paragraphs. I have a little example of how that happens right here. And then formatting. So formatting, we use 1 star for italics. Okay, so you can use 1 star for italics. And if you're using Vim as your editor, you'll see something like this. I want italics for really, and then it will actually. I'm using a Pandoc. I'm using Pandoc for my thing. It actually does this thing. It's called conceal. Where it conceals the stuff and just gives me kind of a thing. If you want long, if you want what do I want to say? Well, let's do it here. So formatting. How do you do formatting? So we'll do a colon formatting. So I can say, let's say 1 italics. Which gets translated into EM HTML tags. If you know what that is, and then we haven't covered that yet, but italics, we have strong or bold is 2, and then we have what else we have? Then we have strong and bold. 3. So bold, italics, and that will these colors are coming from Pandoc. Now, the bold italics is not a word, so I'm going to go ahead and make it a word so it doesn't give me a problem. For HTML tags, can you also get the output to add classes? Yes. And that's a Pandocism. That's what you saw with all those curly brackets. I'll answer that question really quickly, but this is not a basic thing. So what you can do here, actually one of the things I do here is I have actually, let me show you a more specific example of my use of this. So I have, so here we go. So hello friend, I want it to have the bigger class and the no link class. Here I have what's called these are Pandoc tags. These are not basic things. I just want you to know you can do this. You can't do this in any other Markdown. You do .spy. And what that does is that applies the .spy class to HTML. By the way, the reason it's not, so the really big thing about Pandoc is not HTML specific. Do not use HTML in your Markdown. It is not a good idea. In fact, that's why I have styles up here in a separate file. Here's why. And Pandoc knows this. Your code, your knowledge code is going to be rendered in many different ways. And by using a class indicator .spy, I can apply a latex style when I want to render it as latex, or I can apply a CSS style when I want to apply it as HTML. If you include HTML and CSS in your knowledge source, you are permanently tying yourself to one specific rendering. Don't do that. A Markdown site allows Vue.js and Markdown. Yeah, you can definitely look, that's up to you, but I think it's disastrously bad idea to put any specifically rendered format in your Markdown. Now, I personally am also okay with having Vue.js or some JavaScript in there if I need it, but I don't need it. Almost always I don't need it for this kind of thing. we're going to talk about this later on another day, but if you want to allow Vue.js or something like that in your Markdown, and God help you if you use MDX, which is the combination of JavaScript and Markdown, it defeats the whole purpose. The whole purpose of managing your knowledge in an independent way is so that it can be rendered in any other way. So the more you tie your Markdown to a specific rendering type, the more you defeat the entire purpose of doing it in Markdown in the first place. So I'm not a fan of that. And if you, but these things, these little spans right here can be rendered in LaTeX or they can be rendered in Pandoc. And let me just show you how it gets rendered. So you go to RWXGG and you see it applies the style tag here to this one. Now that's the HTML and the rendering of this. If I wanted to render it as LaTeX or PDF, I can do that. Okay. So, and by the way, I am not against putting Vue.js or something like that in there, but every time I put HTML inside of my knowledge source, I know that HTML can be thrown away. And I know that I can use, if I want some HTML, I'll do an HTML, or I'll, but as much as possible, separate the concerns. This is why I absolutely am just totally disgusted by JSX, because JSX combines code with content, and that is a disastrously bad combination that has been a anti-pattern since the dawn of computing, when separation of concerns has validity across the board, and Facebook decided to thumb its nose at it and go the other way. And I think it's horrible. It's fine if you're making an application, if you're sticking with an application, but what we're seeing people do their blog posts with JSX. And that I can't tell you how stupid that is. That is just like so stupid to me. Please don't do that. I mean, if you know why you want to not do that, because you're like buying into this idea that knowledge is always going to be hidden behind some application, and that is not how knowledge should be. It should be independent. You should have knowledge applications, or applications that are testing you and stuff like that, and maybe that's fine for that. But even that can be placed inside of a YAML file and separate, so you have a separation of concerns for the two. Okay, so anyway, so here's italics. Let's get through it. I've only got half an hour left. I'm going to just run through it really fast. Even if I can't get to them all, let's go back to this one. So here we go. So we have italics. I'm just going to use my board here. This is why I have these, by the way. So I've set up a little bit of a thing so I can actually zoom in and show you what the code would look like without any syntax highlighting. So here's bold italics. Then we have backticks for monospaced. These are actually called back quotes officially. If you don't know what these names are, it says what about underscore here, and so you can use the underscore for formatting, but don't, because you don't need to. Again, the goal of basic Markdown is removing redundancies and reducing cognitive overhead, and also improving searchability. By doing this, I can actually search in VI by typing / **** or \****. I can search for every occurrence of bold within my document. If I use underscores or some other way, and I can't be consistent about how my things are, I can't find this stuff. So my big argument there is, stick with one thing, the one best thing. These are also the things that are supported by Discord. So we got that escaping. So sometimes you actually need a star. And the thing you need to know about Pandoc, which is a little bit different than some of the others, is you can actually escape any character at all. So you can put a backslash in front of any character. There is a quirk with Pandoc, which I actually like, because it uses the $ to allow LaTeX to be embedded. The $ has to be backslash escaped to use as a $. That's probably the only sort of annoyance between Pandoc Markdown and every other Markdown, because every other Markdown will just let it be a character. It doesn't care. But I think it's a reasonable, thing, because the $ and $2 is universally used in KTeX and other languages for embedding LaTeX. And so I think putting a backslash in front of it's not that big of a hassle. Just know you have to do that. Headings. So headings, to get a level 1 heading, you just put one star, you put one hashtag, 2 hashtag, all the way up to 6 hashtags. Hashtags, just use the hashtag form. And I actually talk about this here. I don't know if you saw on that Markdown guide, it showed you that you could use, I'm going to go there real quick. but well, I guess not. So on the hashtag, you can actually use something. Well, I'll do one. So don't do what I'm about to do. So like you can put like level 1, level 1. All right, here we go. Good morning. So this is a level 2. So level 1 and 2, according to original Markdown, could have been done like this. Level 1, and you can put underscores under it like that. It doesn't even have to be the whole thing. It could just be part of it. Or you can do level 2. And I got to tell you, when I first started doing this, I thought this was the best way to do it. Because I was all about the source being readable. And that's the original guys who made Markdown. They were all about the source code being as readable and as expressive as the actual output and the rendering. And I think that there's a middle ground between that. They also think that there's an unlimited way of doing, line returns and stuff. The problem is that that's the writer being a little bit too expressive. Because at that point, now you can't consistently parse anything. You have to have a really complex parser, and you can't find. Here's a problem. Okay, so if I were to do it this way, how do I get all of the level headers out? Well, if I'm consistent, I can grep for hashtag at the beginning of a line, with a space after it, one or more, and I can get all the README. I have my level headers, which means even with Bash, I can actually code, and find all the level headers. How do I grep those out if I'm using the other one? Right. So this is just a simple example of why sometimes artistic expression is not something you want in a structured syntax of some kind. And in this case, I think they're redundant already, so I just delete them. And I'm not the only one. There's a lot of other editors that don't even support it. So just use the hashtags for the headers, and you'll be happy. You might want to consider just also something else you should know. So according to the internet standards, there should only be one level 1 per document, unless you have separations from multiple documents. But I'm just going to tell you right now, stick with 1, and then you don't need more. Hey, hi. Well, hi. I'm not quite done, but okay. Hi. Bye. Cantaloupe's so good. Oh, good cantaloupe. Probably dinner, breakfast, whatever, lunch. So just stick with one level 1 header. And by the way, most of the time when you're doing level 1 headers in the way that I'm going to suggest you do it later, I'm kind of getting ahead of myself, but you'll notice in my stuff that I don't ever have a level 1 header, because I actually define the level 1 header to also be the title of the document. And the title of the document is then translated into this. I'm jumping ahead. Please don't get confused. But so when I have this is where my title becomes my title, and then it also becomes the level 1 in the rendering. So here it is down here. So top here it says if I want H1 off, don't do it. Otherwise, if there is a title, then. And if the title is searchable, make it a searchable title. Otherwise, just put the title inside of the H1. And that's where my H1 comes from. Okay. So that's a rendering specific, but I haven't violated any of the useful knowledge ideas here by doing this, because this markdown can now be parsed, and the YAML can be parsed by something that doesn't want to have to necessarily parse all the HTML. So the title is one specific case where I personally have decided to keep it in as a level 1. And you'll notice too that even in the GitLab and GitHub stuff, it's totally fine, because even though I don't have a big wonderful header 1 here, I do have a title right here that anybody can see, because the front matter is called the YAML front matter is displayed, and that goes for GitLab as well. So in this case, just know that a single hashtag is an H1, but consider not using, later on as we get into it, consider not using an H1. Maybe consider just using a title and having that be your H1, and then your highest level headers then will be 2 and below. And actually, the other thing I like about this too is it's much easier to find, and it doesn't conflict as easily with shell script comments that might be in sections of code, which we'll talk about next. Okay, so let's go back to basic Markdown. Here we are. So hyperlinks are the things that there's 3 types of hyperlinks. There's words you can click on, there's URLs, and then there's images. So this is how you make a link to a span of text. You just do You just put brackets around it, super easy. It cannot be a spacer. This is what really, really is the identifier. In fact, you'll find yourself searching through documents a lot for things that have that combination when you want to change the link. I do it all the time with Perl. So, and then you have the link in here. And this is a remote, URL, but it could just be a slash or something. And so there's also, so that's how you link to, groups of words, spans of words. In case you're wondering, you can also put a class after it if you want with the curly bracket if you add on that. That's a Pandoc thing. Auto-linked URLs. So this is something where GitHub has really screwed us up. GitHub decided to sense HTTPS and automatically link it, but the standard has always been put the angle brackets, that's less than and greater than, used in this kind of context, put the angle brackets around the URL so that it will appear. That goes for mail to URLs or any other kind of link that you want. And this telephone URL is actually, or link is actually very useful on a phone. They can click on it and it'll pull up the dialer and everything. So images. So you can actually link an image, but I have to show you how to do an image first. So an image is just the same syntax as a link, right? But the difference is that these words right here will become the alt text of the image. Alt text is an HTML thing. You should always provide alt text. This is for people who cannot see images, whether they're using a text-based browser or they're blind. This is what they see. So make sure you don't make that empty. There should be some information there. This is a local link to it's a site root URL. That means it locks down to the site. This is an HTML thing. But this shows you I want this JPEG image. I haven't talked about images at all either, but and the only difference is you have this exclamation point. That's what changes this from being a regular link. If you take that exclamation point off, what'll it do? It'll make a word called GNOME, and when you click on it, it will open the picture. So by putting the exclamation point there, it says, oh, I don't want to link to the picture. I want to embed the picture right here. And it creates the HTML necessary to do that, or latex, or whatever. Again, this syntax is not HTML specific. And then this gets a little complicated. This is the most complicated markdown you will see today. This is the most. If you can get your head around this, you're fine. This is the most complicated one. Anybody tell me what it does? So this is using the link syntax. Okay, there's the bracket here, and there's the beginning bracket here, and then it puts a picture entirely inside of the link. Okay, so that makes it so that the thing you can actually click on it. And this one goes to RWX Live. It's an actual link, and you'll notice the thing changes. This one it's the normal one, and this one actually changes. So that is a link. Oh, we got any questions coming in? Link and image. Yep. You cannot in alt text is required for HTML5. Yes, it has to have a bang exclamation point. Is not parsed as latex math. If it's not allowed, followed by numbers, it would work. Yes. Well, okay, that might be true. I don't know. If that's true, then my highlighter doesn't see it. So I always escape it anyway. Good insight, Frank. Every time I use the $sign, watch. So every time I use the $sign, so here is $10. You see what I get? It thinks it's the beginning of a latex string. So that might actually be a function of the markdown syntax highlighter. I imagine it is. Almost every markdown, including the official Pandoc syntax highlighter for Vim, is brain dead. And I actually added intelligent quotes. So if you want the good Pandoc syntax highlighter, I added intelligent quotes. I added a different level of conceal, and now I have something else to fix. So if you want a good, if you have do I have a link to my VI setup? Yes. So it actually, yeah, let me just ex that to you. So it's in .vimrc. Please don't use it exactly as it is. Make sure you read it and understand what you're adding to yours. It includes the plugin inside of it that is used. So the plug inside of it points to the Pandoc Markdown plugin that I've modified. I forked it. I didn't agree with a lot of stuff the maintainer was doing, and I tried hard to play nice, and I decided not to. I didn't even read his response. I was like, It's just being super pedantic. And the great thing about open source is if you don't want to put up with the bullshit, you just fork it and do your own. And then maybe they'll come to you at some point and say, it would be really nice. And if they don't want to, you can still maintain your own, and they can take all of your changes and put it into theirs. So I love it. I didn't have to deal with the little power drama dynamics that were going on. Oh, this formatting has no business being independent. You know what? Go fork yourself. No, I'll fork you. How about that? I love open source. So you're getting all of that is just to mean if you want to go see my Pandoc plugin is the only Pandoc plugin that has smart quotes. It's also the only one that does some of the things correctly, but I won't get into all of them right now. Make shirts of that quote. I really think we should. When collaborating with people who are less techy, using Markdown might be restrictive. I don't agree. That is a great question, but I am going to tell you, this is the most complicated it gets. Now, but I hear you. It's still, if they are not okay with dealing with a text editor, and most aren't, then you're screwed. The best way to get them used to this is to find a Markdown text editor that they can use. And there are 1,000 recommendations that will pull up in the chat and Discord. Everybody's got their favorite one. My favorite one is over here. So you remember this page over here? So this is GitLab. When I'm dealing with like a 10-year-old beginner who doesn't know VI yet, and they need to be able to edit this Markdown or start keeping their own notes, I don't even teach them an editor on the first day. I teach them how to use the editor that comes with GitLab. So GitLab and GitHub both have really fantastic built-in editors. And if you type, even the cheap one, there's a big powerful web IDE, but there's also this one here. If I type on edit here, I get a full syntax highlighting of the Markdown, and I can click on preview and see how it'll be rendered. So if you're dealing with a beginner, if they don't, first of all, the first tackling is to get them to actually think they need to save their code in GitLab and GitHub. And most of the time, if they're really, really beginner and they're non-technical, the VS Code is going to be even a stretch for them to use that. So if you're dealing with really non-technical people, there are a number of of editors online. But ultimately, for them to truly create content, they need to be able to create content in GitHub and GitLab, because that's the whole point. The whole point is being able to save the knowledge. So there are other places you can use to edit, but ultimately you have to save it somewhere, right? And so if you can't get around the hurdle of them using GitLab and GitHub. The easiest way to do that, though, without even using an editor. In fact, I've taught 9-year-olds and used nothing but the GitLab editor. Nothing but this. They even wrote game code in here. And then they click commit, and then it gets published to Netlify. So they use this happy graphic editor that's built into the tool, and they use the tool as an editor. Another way to do that would be something like Replit. Problem is with that is it doesn't save it, not in the sense that GitLab does or GitHub. So if you're dealing with absolute youngsters or people who are super non-technical, the one technical hurdle is getting them to use GitLab or GitHub. And you can make that case pretty solidly. And then once they're using that, have them use the graphic editor that comes with the tool. And eventually they're going to get annoyed by it. They're going to be like, this is too hard. I want to use my own editor, blah, blah, blah. And almost always, if they're non-technical, the next thing I tell them is use VS Code. And because why? Because VS Code has Git built into it. They have to configure a few things to get their keys working, and they can use Git VS Code by clicking on a button and synchronize their work. They don't have to, they can do their editing, and they can put their preview plugin in, and they can go and do it. This is one case, if you're dealing with that kind of user, a non-technical user doesn't want to use VI Remax, which is not what we're doing on the Boost, by the way. We're assuming you're a technical terminal user. Then those are some approaches you might consider. So it's worth, I'm glad you mentioned that, because we're talking about those things. Pandoc does convert to DocX, but it does. Pandoc will support converting from DocX if you really have to do that. So if you need to have people tell you, like, send me your document, just make sure you make this an H1 and this an H2 and this an H3. If you have like a business user who is married to Microsoft Word docs, then you can just say, here's the conventions. And that's not unusual for a business scenario or for a student. There are stylistic guidelines for if you can't create documents unless you know how to create stylistic guidelines. So then you would make them a style sheet and say, submit me your work in Microsoft Word like this. and then you do the conversion. If you're dealing with somebody who is absolutely, yeah, well, I know they are, and I think it's a monstrous disaster. I do. I think it is a monstrous disaster that so many of us are tied to that incredibly horrible documentation tool. But you know what? The one way to get around that, though, is to say, okay, or to give them a template. How about that? Which I did at IBM for years. We would say, okay, here's your template, right? Go fill this out. You had to, you had to request whatever. You had to do like, and what is it? What are those things that we used to do? A request for a quote, an RFQ or whatever. So have them write the Microsoft Word doc, but don't use the fancy stuff. And then have them convert. You can actually, I'm pretty sure you can convert to tables even from Pandoc. I would really like to see people play around with that some more. Anyway, I think you should start your CV as Markdown. I absolutely do. Because here's why. Or your dissertation or your blog. Because you can always convert to anything else. But it's not always possible to convert from those other formats into Markdown. And that's because they all do things completely differently and stupidly. Particularly, it's not possible to convert a PDF to a Markdown file. It's not possible. It's way, way too proprietary and freaky. So, but you can go the other way. And so that's all. We're talking about knowledge here. We're not talking about flashy documents. We're not talking about pamphlets. We're talking about raw knowledge, and that takes many forms. Will something like GitLab display it properly? Yeah. No, we just did that. So I actually just demonstrated that. So actually you can click preview right here and you see it. Now, the only reason that these are appearing is because I'm using Pandoc things. So GitLab uses Common Mark, which will work as long as you use basic Markdown, which is what I'm describing right now, which brings me back to the topic. But when you start to branch out and use things like Pandoc, Pandoc will support it, but GitLab and GitHub don't support class span links. This has actually been proposed for Common Mark, by the way. So there's a good chance that this is going to be supported, but it currently isn't. But yes, it will be rendered, and that's the main reason you want to name it README.md. Yeah, if you can find a good one, that'd be great. Pandoc is like the master key that opens all the locks. It kind of is. So anyway, let's go back, and nobody teaches it, by the way. I don't know why. So I got to kind of jet through the rest of these to get through it in time so I can eat my lunch here. I'll give another 10 minutes here. All right. And we have no problem doing that, guys. The stuff that we have left is not very hard. So lists. Look, you can use stars. Just use stars for lists. Use 4 spaces of indentation if you choose to indent, which I should probably put here. Don't use 2 spaces or 3 spaces. That's one of the things that's unspecified by Markdown. So if you're going to nest your list, use 4 spaces, the end. I need to add that here. Otherwise, just stick with single level lists and make many of them. The reason I have just a single level list here is if you want to make a document that's compatible with Medium, for example, the Medium blogging service, which I don't use anymore, but because it's got a paywall. But if you did, this is the only thing they allow. All right. You can't use multiply nested lists in Discord either. So anyway, just use stars. You can use anything. They want you to use pluses and minuses and all sorts of jazz for those indent. Just use stars so you know what they look like and can find them. It's not going to hurt you to do that. Just use ones. So for for ordered lists, use ones. Why? You want to know why? You're going to find yourself reordering stuff in these numbered lists a lot. And unless you have a fancy tool, and I don't like building dependencies into my knowledge source on a specific tool, then you're back to using Word, right? So there are tools out there that will automatically renumber for you, but you might as well use Word at that point. So if not, I just put 1 dot. It is a little hard to tell what numbers are when you're reading the source, but the reason for that is because when I put bash on top, the numbers reorder by themselves when they're rendered, okay? Pandoc supports a number of other numbering mechanisms that include numbering in other languages that I won't list here because they're not compatible with everything that's in this basic document is compatible across the board with every use of Markdown. I have never encountered any Markdown tool that does not support this, or rendering, or GitHub, or GitLab, or Reddit, or anything. So this is for compatibility and simplicity. So here we have separators. Look, this one really triggers me. You can use an infinite number of combinations to make a horizontal line. don't do it. Just use 4 dashes. Why 4 dashes? Because 3 dashes is used by YAML to mark the beginning of a YAML section. Just use 4 dashes. Don't use 10. Don't use like 20 dashes mixed with asterisks, mixed with lines. Don't be, cute and put something like 3 dots in the middle of your file. No, just use at the beginning of your line. Why? Because now you can like isolate out the horizontal rules and you can find them in your code faster. They're easy to remember. You don't have to think about it. Hard returns. If you actually want a line to return, you put 2 or more spaces. Some people hate this. I love it. I really like that you can do this because sometimes I want to and I want to say like here is, thing. Now, because I have my Pandoc Markdown plugin, it's 30 dashes is right out. Not 4, not 2, excepting that thou proceedest to 3. I needed that. Okay. The Holy Hand Grenade of Antioch, that might be my all-time favorite scene in Monty Python. And then the orangutans and the anchovies. Oh God, now I just have to go watch that. So here is a thing. And you see it has but it will actually put it on its own line. All right. Next you have the Vim. So this I made a plug for the Vim Pandoc plugin here, which you can click on and it should show you. Yep, there you go. How to do plugins, integration with magic wands, which people tell me is a bad term, but I don't care. I don't think of it that way. Blocks separate text or code in the document usually as a box. There are 2 main block types to remember: plain block types, as in pre-formatted, and both use backticks. Okay, so this is where we've already heard a recommendation of using 4 backticks instead of 3 backticks, and then 10 backticks, or if you want stuff inside of something else. So the problem is that there's too many options. Once again, first of all, if you're using Discord, you just get 3 backticks. So there, if there's no other reason, make sure you use 3, because if you use 4, it won't work. So there's already been this sort of standardization on some of this stuff that you may or may not be aware of, and this represents some of that standardization. 3 backticks. And so this will actually, by the way, these code fences, to give GitHub credit, they invented the idea of the code fence. And these are fences and code goes inside of them. If you don't have anything here, an identifier here, it just goes ahead and makes it a regularly indented thing. Now you can, get around that, by, whoops, let's see, where are we? Code fence is plain. You can get around plain ones, in Pandoc by just putting 4 spaces, and then it will do it in front of everything. But I don't regularly recommend doing that. I do it a lot in RWXGG, but it is a Pandoc specific thing. More importantly, though, are the code fences, and code fences are really valuable. You saw me use one on Discord just a second ago. This is a code fence. This is 3 backticks. In fact, if I go to edit it, I can show you what it looks like. So here's an example. And you see I didn't even put it on its own line. Discord should not have supported that, but it did. So that's what a code fence looks like. So I hit enter and you get, here's an example of blah. So code fences in Discord are super duper cool. And that is the reason alone is the reason to use it over Slack, because you can actually share code snippets with other people without using some other tool. And so this is just kind of the example I just showed you. Just put, and it will actually, depending on your renderer, it will actually detect the type of code that you're using, and it will cut apart all the stuff in here and turn it into something that can be syntax highlights with the style sheet. You can disable that in your renderer, and I don't want to get ahead of myself. I don't do that. In my site, I deliberately use black and white because I want the emphasis to be on every single letter equally. I don't want to overemphasize or de-emphasize anything while I'm teaching it to you. And then, we can point out each piece as we go. And that also prints out better. Most textbooks are done that way. Here's a short list of supported tags. So MD is Markdown, JSON, JavaScript, HTML, CSS, and SH for shell. You can also use Bash. That really depends more on your renderer. Pandoc supports like hundreds of different language types and syntaxes if you wish to activate that. So anyway, I do, and we had somebody mention the exception of using 4 backticks. I would rather not use that exception. My exception for that is to use 3 tildes. And this is the only exception for Markdown. There's one more after this, but this is the only exception, and it's only for Markdown. If you need to lose Markdown in here, I want to use the three tildes. Okay, and because I'm going to have Markdown here. If I have 4 backticks instead of 3, then my parser gets more complicated because it has to count them all up. Well, do you have 3 or do you have 4? I mean, obviously you can code it fine, but I would rather visually to know immediately that I have an unusual situation here and I have a Markdown exception. There is one other, so this is what it looks like. This actually renders the Markdown the way it should. There is another suggestion that I didn't include anymore, but you might have a situation where you need to include a code snippet of Markdown that includes Markdown. And if that is the case, I actually use 4 tildes, but that is the only, and it's a super duper rare exception. I mean, it would be like, I am writing a document about Markdown that contains Markdown. That is the only case you would ever need it. So 99.9% of people don't need to know about that exception. And if you are doing that, that's a case where you could probably make a consistent exception. And the real key here to take away is consistency. And I'm about done with to go and take my break. Just make sure you use something consistent and it's simple. And you don't overdo it. Block quotes are just a greater than sign in front. Just remember that you also have to have, so here you go. You can use quotation marks if you want. That's not a part of it. If you want a line between, just remember you have to have an extra greater than sign. I use block quotes pretty sparingly, and I use a pandoc div instead. But if you just want to stick with something that's maximally compatible, do this. So this is a multi-line sort of thing. It's a little bit harder to maintain that when you're editing it because you have to go reset the beginning of every line. I'm jumping ahead, but a pandoc div actually lets you use 3 colons and mark the start and the end, and then you can wrap everything inside of just regular old Markdown, and it just gives you a div around the whole thing. So that's a block quote. Tables. So tables, just don't use them, and I mean that. Okay, tables are not supported in any official Markdown. And they're not supported in any of the original official Markdown. GitHub famously used tables, but they are so brain dead, you need a tool to even make them and maintain them. When you are ready to move to tables, and you'll notice I have, use Pandoc Markdown tables. And they are really cool. I don't have them all covered here, but use Pandoc Markdown tables, and I'll show you how to do those. I mean, I'll let you read these differences here. I'm going to kind of conclude here. However, if you want maximum compatibility, you probably want to put a raster image of a table instead, particularly if you want a table to appear on GitHub and GitLab in your README file, because the safest way to do that is to do it as an image. It is true that Pandoc supports GitHub flavored Markdown for tables, but I just recommend you not use that for maximum compatibility. When you're ready to break the compatibility barrier and use something that is not really, really broadly compatible with GitHub and GitLab and all that stuff, I would definitely opt for Pandoc Markdown tables because they're so much easier to maintain. Anyway, so can I use HTML? Yes, but you probably shouldn't. Because why? Because you're making yourself dependent. Instead, make a style sheet and pull your styles in through another file. Do something else in the template rather than putting a lot of dependencies on a specific rendering format inside of that. It's very common to have multiple templates. Like somebody will have a LaTeX template, they'll have a PDF template, they'll have a man page template, they'll have a ProPod template, they'll have a restructured text template, and then they take the same content and they can generate it for any of those formats. So if you do it as Markdown, you can create, a Go doc out of it. You can create a man page out of it really easily. Actually, man pages are one of the easiest things to convert to. But if you write it as a man page, you might not be able to pull it back in. Those are actually pretty compatible both ways. But anyway, can I use reference links at the bottom? So Markdown supports this. One last thing before I go. Just never ever do it. It's one of the worst things that Markdown supports. And the reason they support what I'm about to show you is because of the idea of having a nice clean source code, right? So they allow you to do with a link to something. So these are called reference links. Never ever use them. I mean it. Don't use these. These will bite you so fast. So down at the bottom, way down here, you have like a link and you say, oh, I want a link to something, right? And then what? And then you put a colon and then you say, you set it to HTTPS, rwx.gg. All right. And the idea is that they would make it easier to read and this jazz, right? In fact, some of them make you do this, right? And actually, if you want the link to be, easy, if they want another link down here, they'll say, okay, well, I want it to be a link. And so you can put it, just don't do any of this stuff I'm doing right now. Okay. It's like the reason all of this is designed is to make the source code more readable. But who cares? Because first of all, 9 times out of 10, you want to read the link while you're editing it. If you have a big, ridiculously long link, you can set your editor to conceal that link for you automatically when you go off of it. Almost all editors, including Vim. But what if you want a formal bibliography too? I'm talking about basic Markdown here. Okay, I'm talking about basic Markdown. So if you want a formal bibliography, I strongly encourage you to read about Pandoc references. They are specifically for academic writing that have been massive bibliographies, indexes, references, and all that stuff. But it's in Pandoc. Okay, that sort of thing. The reason you don't want to do that in here, I have to just finish this point here. The reason you don't want to do this in here is then you make a new document, right? Okay, so I cannot tell you how many times I've done this. So I've gone like this. I'm like DD, delete this line. I'm going to put this line into another .md file. Boom. All right. It's like, oh, my link isn't going to anywhere. Okay, so I'll add a link over here, link to something. Most of the time though, when I'm copying, let's say it's a big old paragraph with 10 links in it, right? The process of maintaining. And then you come back, you forget. So this is I've done this so many times I cannot tell you. So you do a link here, you do a link to something, right? And you get this all well and good. And now what did you do? At the very minimum, you're going to forget about the link in the other one. And we're talking about a huge document that's like bigger than 2 or 3 screens of text. And you're like, wait, what was that link to? I don't see a link in here. So you search for the link, and you can't find it, and blah, blah, blah. And the problem of the matter is if I had the thing all as one thing and not it's a dangling reference, it's just bound to hurt you because you're going to forget about it at some point. And it's just really, whereas if you maintain it properly like this, HTTPS, despite the fact that it's a little bit longer, if you're using a decent editor, it will hide it from you when it's off the thing. So it'll show you why you got it highlighted. Plus you can search out all the things that have those links. If you have it the other way, think about grepping through. You guys been watching me work with my database? With my knowledge source, I've been using Perl to find and replace all of the links to a given thing. It would be impossible to write that code using reference links. It would be impossible to write a one-liner to do find and replace and alter the references if I was using reference links. Do not do it. It's like one of the single worst things that you can do in regular Markdown that is just disastrously bad for a sustainable knowledge base because it decouples it. Now, here's the output. So now I want to copy that link over here. Open up another thing. I have basically got the link. I'm all good. I don't have to do anything else. If say I want to change that link, Perl Pi. So what did I do it? It's like a link to rwxgg. Okay, well let's make it a link to something else. Okay, so I gotta go here, but so let's do this. So here we go. Pi. This is Perl dash p dash i dash e substitute slash rwx.gg for rwx.gg slash something else. And I don't know, slash G, and then I do it on everything that ends in .md, and now I get substitution that works and does not work. Let's see if I can get my substitute to work. Perl PIES, whoopsie. rwx.gg, something else. Why didn't I do it? What am I missing, guys? Inline comment on MD. There is not an inline comment on MD. Extension pandoc, title block. Yes, the first line of the file. Yes, the title does need to be the first line of the file. I've already got that. So thinking about my slash. Oh, right. Thank you. So let's try that. Yep. I do have my alias. I didn't use it this time because I didn't use my Perl Pi alias because I wanted people to see what I'm doing. I have a Pi. I do Pi like this, and it's just the same thing. It's just faster. It's an alias. So in case you guys want to make one of these, you can make a Pi alias, and Pi is like the best find and replace mechanism you'll ever use. It's so amazingly cool, and it's like 1,000 times better than sed-i and awk. So it's actually Perl's sweet spot. Anyway, be careful though; it's super dangerous. And so let's go do this readme, and I'm going to take a break. Man, I almost burned right through my break. I'm going to take a break anyway, even though I'm a little late on that break. And we'll come back. I think we've wrapped up all of Markdown though. We talked about escaping. Let me just make sure we did it all. So you can go try some of this stuff. We talked about a few things beyond what I normally talk about. And can I use HTTP for links? No, we talked about that. Why do you use underscore? So that is basic Markdown. Basic Markdown. Start there. And once you start there, if you want to know what's other things that are possible, go for the Pandoc. And I'm not going to talk about the Pandoc today. But I'm regularly writing in Pandoc Markdown. So if anybody has any questions about watching me write, I write on stream last day, it's just for 9 hours. When I wasn't screwing around, I was writing in Pandoc on screen. You can ask questions. So you can click on Pandoc Markdown up here, and it will take you to the Pandoc page. Pandoc Markdown is the official documentation syntax for the R programming language. You can go to, let's see, it's funny because I know this through links, but I don't know it on here. I can actually find this in links fast. I don't use graphics ever. In fact, what am I even doing? You guys can find it that hard way. Pandoc Markdown. This is so much faster. Markdown. And so we're going to do this. Easy peasy and fun for writing. Links. Oops, I have to do question mark. Okay. So here's Pandoc Markdown. We'll go click on this link. Oh, this is the R one. We don't want that one. JGM Pandoc Markdown. Just universal markup. No, that's a different one. Well, I'll just use the manual. Anyway, so we'll do the manual. So let's say tables. So for example, nope, not CSV tables. We want Pandoc Markdown. Pandoc Markdown. Oh, did I not do the manual? Where is it? Documentation, user's guide. There we go. User's guide / tables. Tables. There they are. That's pretty. Look at that. So /down Markdown tables, table captions. It's got, so it shows you like the different syntaxes you can use. The definitions, you can look up divs. So here's the div syntax. Oh, I love divs. Now, even Pandoc lets you use multiple ways to do it. Again, I don't recommend it. I recommend sticking with some sort of consistent thing so you can search it out. And in my case, I use 3 for div. I should probably make a guideline for Pandoc itself for knowledge bases, because I don't want to search around for 5, 10, or 15 colons for a div mark as well. I'm going to take 5-10 minutes. I will go ahead and AFK. We lost all our music and everything, so I'll turn some music back on, and then I'm going to come back. I hope this has been educational. I'm going through it pretty quickly, no doubt. Daft Punk videos, how do we get on that? And you guys can relax a little bit while I have some food. Yeah, I'm going to put my FK timer on. And I'm really sorry about the 7 minutes over last time. That's why we're a little bit late, because I chose up my time. For the last segment, I don't know if we should cover Pandoc or if we should actually talk about converting it. I think I actually might introduce you to Pandoc for the conversion of basic Markdown, so you can see what happens when you can convert it and how easily it is to convert with Vim. So stay tuned. That's what I'll be doing next. AFK until AFK until I'm only going to take about let's say 5-7 minutes, so that'd be 20. Let's say 120. All right, and we'll convert to PDF as well. Yep. So, oh boy, did I kill my AFK command? I did. I killed my AFK command. HTML also. Yes, it's super easy. Yep. Yeah, we'll do some of that stuff. We'll practice some converting so that I can kind of like put my money where my mouth is and actually do some conversions. All right. See you soon. I gotta go. Yeah. Oh. Philosophical conversation with my stepson over toast and eggs. I just cannot make it on time. May you all have people in your life who occupy your thoughts and discussions like my family. We always have interesting. We could just be eating toast and we're talking about the nature of engineering and the necessity of language for conveying knowledge, if at all. It's just awesome. I love them. They're great. All right, what are we going to do? Let's talk about how to make something useful out of all of this fancy stuff we've been doing. So up to now, you have something that you can definitely read and maintain. But what if you want to share it with somebody as a PDF or a web page? So let's do that. Today I'm going to show you how to write. You need to install Pandoc, so that's the first step. And we're going to write a tiny little bash script without getting too crazy. And we're going to add to this bash script as we go eventually, depending on how much time we have on Friday. We can really trick it out if you want. I can show you the one I have here just to give you a sense of that. This is my current build script, which is a pretty hairy thing, but I don't mind giving you a copy if you want. So there it is. But you don't have to start out that crazy. So let's go back to our sample and find that. Where is that? Copycat ladies like the rest. Oh boy. No, that's not it. Got too many windows open, people. Nope, that one can go away. Too many windows. What is this one? Ooh, another for loop. I quit that one. Oh, that's editing my Twitch script. That's where my AFK went. Math is a completely different thing. Here, go look at the Pandoc. Frank, I don't mean to put you off, but go look at the Pandoc template for latex and KTeX. It's two. That one might actually be $2 signs. I don't know though. We have to go. We could go check it out. Yeah, let's go. How's it going, guys? Hakari, how's it going, sir? Oh, another raid. Awesome. You can watch us do some 81 from Chris. Hey, good to see you, Chris. You're just in time to see us convert some Markdown into. We're going to go do a little bit of Markdown conversion. I've got a little thing here. So for the last two segments, the first hour, I just ranted about why knowledge is important and got really emotional because people like Aaron Swartz have been snuffed out who were putting knowledge, the renovation of knowledge in our world as a priority, and then they got shut down. I know he loves Manjaro. I know he does. He says it's the best distro. Good try. I've seen the video proof that he had trouble with it at one point. So we're going to go do some Pandoc. Hey, thanks for the sub, guys. I'm going to go ahead and we're going to write a little bit of code in Shell. To do a little conversion of some Markdown that we did. So I'm going to give you the whirlwind version since we got some visitors here today. Thank you for visiting. We covered Pandoc today. We're not covering all of Pandoc, but we're covering knowledge as source. And we're covering specifically how to use that knowledge as source. So I'm going to just reiterate what I already just went through. So as you see here, this is what Markdown looks like when you use it on GitLab or GitHub. I'm using Pandoc, so I have some class matches which are not supported yet. They're actually proposed addition to Common Mark, so that'll be in there. What am I talking about? What's Common Mark? So for Common Mark and understanding of Pandoc, rdbx.gg /lang/md, and this will take you to a really whirlwind summary of what Markdown is. But more importantly, it'll take you to it'll explain why you should use Markdown for all of your stuff, not restructure tests, not whatever else, not Microsoft Word. Because it's a universal knowledge source that's supported by everyone, writers, knowledge. You can go from Markdown, particularly Pandoc Markdown, into any other format, but the reverse is not always true, and that's the primary reason to use it. If you don't want, if in 20 minutes or so you can understand all there is to know about basic Markdown that works with Discord, Reddit, whatever, Stack Exchange, all this stuff. And I'm not going to go through this. We did this last hour or two. But if you want to go through it, you can go through it. There's paragraphs. We have paragraphs. We have, single stars for formatting. We have escapes with backtick. We have headers with hashtags and 1, 2, 3, 4, 6 hashtags. We have hyperlinks with words, wrapping words in brackets and then linking them with parentheses and a link around that. We have angle brackets around auto links. We have images. We have linked images. We have lists with stars and numbered lists with ones. And we have hard returns. We have separators with 4 dashes. Hard returns with 2 spaces that are invisible unless you're using a really awesome Markdown plugin like the one that I extended from Pandoc that's in my repo. If you want to look at my vimrc, I'm going to give you guys my vimrc as well again. So those of you who want to know what plugins I use, it's in my vimrc there. And then we go through blocks, 3 backticks for any blocks. Code fences, which were brought to Markdown by GitHub, allow you to allow languages, which has been demonstrated in Discord here. So here's a demonstration of what it looks like when you want to have code listed in your Discord. This is not supported by Slack, by the way. And so all these great things, block quotes, which look like this. Tables. Don't use tables. If you are going to use tables, consider using GitHub tables. So that's literally a 60-second overview of basic Markdown. If you use basic Markdown, you won't go wrong. And then you can expand on it. And you can expand on it using either Common Mark, which is the standard commonly between all of them. That project is led by JGM, who is the creator of Markdown. Pandoc Markdown, not Markdown. That's John Gruber. And then he's also got his extension to the Markdown language called Pandoc Markdown, which we will eventually use, not today. But I will show you how to use Pandoc to convert your Markdown into something useful. So I'm seeding into Lang MD, and let's go into, I think we have basic, right? I have a sample in here of some stuff we were doing. So I have this README sample here, and generally you want to name your Markdown files all caps README lowercase .md because that is automatically detected in most Git hosting services and other places. It's almost always a better idea to make a new subdirectory and put a README.md file inside of that subdirectory so that it will be auto rendered when people visit that page by default in GitLab or GitHub. PDF works nice. Did you get math in there? Oh my gosh. So this is another reason to use Pandoc Markdown. So as Frank has been showing us, Pandoc Markdown, the reason it was selected as the standard Markdown, the standard knowledge source format for documentation and everything, is because it already fully supports LaTeX, which supports textbooks generation, and the R programming language chose to make it, for that reason, their official language. In fact, you can write R projects, you can do R Markdown projects that have R code in them that can be executed in line. It's pretty damn awesome if you like that kind of thing. So it is, Markdown is a little bit more polished because it is a little bit more academic. It has been in the past traditionally just used by academics, but it's exploded onto the scene everywhere because it can be used to make slideshows. It can make pretty much anything out of Pandoc Markdown. Anyway, so what else we got? So let's go ahead and do a conversion. So just a really quick overview. We haven't covered front matter yet. We're going to do that tomorrow. So tomorrow is going to be YAML day, and YAML day is going to take. Now, I don't know if we should do JSON day first. I think we already did JSON, so tomorrow is YAML day, but for the first part of the first segment, I will talk about JSON and how YAML builds on JSON to provide this wonderful human-readable language that's used everywhere. It's used in all Docker container specifications, and it's fantastic for human-maintained and written structured data, and it can be used to use an entire flat file database if you want to, and it includes a strong typing of data and everything. It's basically everything about data. It's even used in NetPlan. Yeah. It can be used for something as simple as front matter, which is what this is called when you combine YAML data with this. And YAML data being combined with Markdown was first done by Tom Person-Warner, who invented Jekyll for GitHub back when he was there, and who then later on went on to invent TOML, by the way. I made the TOML logo, by the way. I always like to bring that up. But Tom was the first one in the Jekyll static site generator, which I think pretty decidedly is is the first true static site generator, and people still use Jekyll. It still drives all of the auto web publishing that's happening on GitHub. But the world has moved on from there, and people ask all the time, well, why don't you use Hugo or Pandoc? That's probably a question for another day. Hugo is still largely focused on generating really fast sites, but Pandoc doesn't care. Pandoc is focused on one thing and one thing only: capturing knowledge in a way that is sustainable and portable. That's it. And so if you stick with that, Jekyll is still fantastic. It really is. It's a great little Ruby app. It's a little slow, but yeah. So there are a lot of the key I'm trying to say here is that if you stick with the format that is sustainable and portable, the most sustainable and portable format in the world is Pandoc. As you just saw, Frank just did math with that. You can't do that with GitHub flavored Markdown. You can't do that with other languages. But if you stick with the basics here, and then you do it. So let's convert it. We have 20 minutes or so to convert, or 25 minutes or so to convert this. So it's actually pretty damn easy. Once you install Pandoc, and it's not hard to go get the latest Pandoc, but I do suggest you do get the latest. And so I do want to show you that. I have a little script for you to go get the latest, rather than the one that's going to be installed using apt, or unless you're using Arch, which is really up to date. You're going to be really far behind if you don't do it this way. So this is how I recommend you go to get Pandoc. It's a fun little, if you're in Arch, this is only for Debian people, by the way. Okay. So what this does is it's down, I'm going to send it to you. So I'm explaining it to you. Yeah, I use Arch, by the way, but I just use it in a VM or as a Docker container. Bin bash, curl, whatever. This downloads this URL, and it does the redirection, and then Debian based, and then it does some replacements to clean up of the version from this is a parameter expansion in Bash, which we covered last week, and pretty and amazing, outstanding compatibility. Yeah, Pandoc version. It goes in, it grabs the version off of here, and then it actually downloads it and it installs it. Okay, so yeah, well this particular one won't work for you, so I'm going to give you this script. You guys can have this script if you want to install Pandoc really fast, and you just want the latest. And I do recommend you get the latest. It has something really amazing called Pandoc template partials, which allow you to associate a template with a data type from YAML, which is so stinking cool. I can't tell you. So imagine being able to map an HTML or latex or PDF template, particular bit of code that matches a piece of data in your YAML data structure. And so anytime that data type is encountered, it gets rendered using the partial for it, and it uses a colon syntax. It's just so beautiful. And so it's just so stinking cool. And that's only available in the latest one. It also allows you to use the alternative template syntax using curly brackets, which we'll get into now. We're not going to get into the nuts and bolts of doing templates until, because we don't have time today. On Thursday this week, depending on how time goes with our other, getting through the YAML stuff and everything. On Thursday, I'm shooting to show you how to write templates in Pandoc. And that is a bigger thing. Friday, I think I'm going to try to keep for all of our fun projects. We're also going to have a little bit of a debate and an open discussion about how best to manage and share knowledge. And I'd really appreciate some feedback on your ideas on building the readme.world, which I've been working on in many ways for a very long time, and opening our world back up and promoting, exchange and linking out of our websites to other things. So we'll have a big old debate on that last day. I do archive my streams on YouTube. They're kind of all over the place. I should tell everybody who doesn't know already. rwx.gg is the link. So that's what we're working from here. It's constantly undergoing flux, as I'm just describing right now. And 64-bit architecture. It does. I'm sorry. I should probably say that. Thanks for the cheer, guys. Yeah, and so that is a very alive document. It's thank you for the cheer, really. It's constantly changing, but the knowledge stuff that we're talking about this week is in the spirit of promoting the exchange and secondary opinions and linking out to things. So, and a big part of that is capturing the knowledge. So that's been today. That's what we've been talking about. And then converting that knowledge to another format, which we're starting to talk about today. And tomorrow we're going to start to talk about converting YAML knowledge as well and structured data. So let me just back up a little bit before I do this conversion. So there's really two types of knowledge data that we have to store. One of them is highly structured data. So that's data that has a type, that has to be maintained, that type, that has to be stored, that has a repetitive structure, and that type of knowledge is usually more in the data category. So that knowledge falls under structured data, and the two formats for structured data that are the overwhelming leaders today are YAML and JSON. And we're going to talk about those more over the next 2 days, but we kind of got a hint at them today. Today we talked about the third and the most important one, which is Markdown, and Markdown contains the free form, sort of structured and formatted rhetorical writing, or the information, the descriptive information, and that is by far the leading format. So those are the three formats that you really need to master if you want to understand this. Unfortunately, all three of those formats are not taught by any organized educational institution that I have ever known. In fact, if anybody here has ever in a class been taught JSON, Markdown, or YAML, I would appreciate you letting me know in the Discord, because I continue to ask and I keep getting back questions that people made it entirely through college and never even heard what YAML and Markdown were. And INI, I really like INI. INI is not superior. I wrote the INI parser and library for Ruby, so I'm definitely a fan of INI. I'm not kidding. I am actually. This is why I got into TOML so much. TOML for configuration is pretty damn awesome too. I won't lie, it is pretty awesome. Yeah. Do you know why YMLS, YAMLs? How do you not know YAMLs? I only know about this Markdown because of DistroTube. Well, that's great. I keep hearing great things about DistroTube, and I've never really watched him like a lot. I watch him every once in a while. INI is a good format, but really limited. Yes. If you're interested in INI format, so there are two other popular structured data formats. One of them is XML, which is still in popular use all over, including for SVG images, and the other one is you're talking about INI. INI CSV is another one, and we're not going to talk about CSV or tab delimited. We probably should actually. I think we probably should talk about tab delimited. But those are other structured data formats that we need to talk about, because you're going to have to use those in some way. Yes, YAML is configuration for all the Minecraft servers for sure. That's why people, what else? JSON is command blocks. All the command blocks, you want to make like 1,000 zombies or something, or you want to summon a killer rabbit. Do you guys know about the killer rabbits in Minecraft? Then in order to summon a killer rabbit in Minecraft, you have to do it with a special command block with special parameters. All those parameters that you're passing into the command block are JSON. That's a JSON structure. So if you want to know about all of this stuff, it will apply to everything you're ever doing out there. Okay, so INI is also not hierarchical. Yeah, that's a little bit of a problem. All right, so here's how you render it. It's really not complicated, people. So once you do your install, you have a README file, and this is how simple it is: pandoc readme.md. All right, so I'm going to progressively show you how to build on this. So just run pandoc on the thing. You can see that it already converts to HTML. Here's a fun thing. So you can actually open up this README file, and you can convert this entire file from within VI. Check this out. So if I do the magic wand commands, so I do exclamation point and I do capital G, it selects the entire file and sends it to the command line. Well, you can probably guess I'm going to type pandoc from the command line and convert the whole thing to HTML. All right, so that's one thing you can do. So if ever you needed to just convert a little bit of code into HTML, you can do it that way. Okay, so Pandoc by default converts into HTML, into Pandoc HTML. If you want to just convert one line into HTML, let's convert this one line into HTML. Bang, bang. And then I type Pandoc and it converts that one line into HTML. Undo. Again, exclamation point, Pandoc converts that whole line into HTML. Okay, so I want to change this title into HTML. Bang, bang. Pandoc converts that into... Is that something useful? Maybe not for right now, but it is for if you are ever writing a code that you need a little segment of HTML for, you can use Pandoc as a little substituter, and then just do that. Okay, so more likely what you'll need to do, it's really great for demonstrating the conversion, is it not? So watch, I'm going to do this one. Pandoc, it's going to show you that it just puts an EM around the whole thing and wraps it in a paragraph tag. Okay, now next thing. So I've showed you that you can actually do a Pandoc conversion here, and you can convert a README file. If you just want to check what you're doing, so you can do it like that. Okay. Let me give you a good example of why you might want to do that in line. So let's say you want to practice using the spans, which are a Pandoc only thing. Spans allow you to put, instead of circles, parentheses for links, you can use curly brackets and say, I want to apply the spy text class to this little guy here. And now I want to test it. So bang, bang. And then I render it as Pandoc, and you can see that it converts those things into a span and gives it a class of spy type text. So let me do that again. So you see here, it's the bracket. So this is a Pandoc only. This is a Pandoc only. It's been, as I said, it's been proposed for Common Mark, but it's not accepted yet. This syntax right here it's called attributes that they're probably adding. Better for use of the title. Otherwise, the file. I mean, you could do that too, but I don't. I'm just going to do one line at a time for right now. Frank's suggesting that we use the % to send the whole file to it, which is totally fine too. But we're just going to do it like that. Okay, so let's say, so now I want to convert the thing. So we already know if I run Pandoc on the whole file, it'll convert the whole file. But there's a problem. We're missing the HTML headers and all the other jazz. Plus, it's also not writing it to a file. So the first thing to add to make it so that it actually gives you more is -s. And -s says, I want a whole file. Now, by default, what it does, it scrolls off the screen, of course. So it's going to give you a whole file, but it gives you their standard template, which, if you can't tell right here, is ancient. There's no way, you should never use the default template from Pandoc. This is 1999 XHTML, and they have not updated their templates, probably because nobody cares about them. It's even got shivs on it and everything. Just don't use it. I mean, seriously, don't use the default template. In fact, let's make a new template right now really quickly. We're going to make the world's simplest template. Yeah, I know. We're going to make a template file.html, and we're going to make a really simple template. We'll stick with a basic HTML, about doc type. This is doc type HTML. That makes it 5. We'll do HTML lang equals en, I guess. HTML. Then we'll do head, and a title. Head, and we'll put our title here. This is really fast, so don't judge me. We're going to put a little title template here, and then down here we'll have a body element, body, and I'm going to do something that's going to seem weird, but put your body thing way over here because it might mess it up. Now, you can also write these template replacement variables using the old syntax, which is like this. The new syntax is a little bit more mustachy and supported across the board. It looks like a little bit more like Bash, and that's only in the latest Pandoc, by the way. So my HTML syntax keeps pushing over. So here we go. And then actually, if you do that, you can also do this. You can say, you can say, well, we'll do if statements another day, but let's just say, let's put the title in here and say, put the title here, and we'll wrap that in H1 and /H1. And so you have this nice, simple little title template. There's no styles or anything. But I just want you to get the idea. So there's our own HTML5 template. And now I want to change my Pandoc command to include my template. Now, unfortunately, when it comes to the template, you have to do long form. Template equals template.html. And it's generated in the output. Yeah. So that, yeah, that's what I did. That's why I did that. I think they may have even fixed that in the latest one, but I'm not familiar with that. I just know that I had to fix that if I wanted stuff to line up properly in the old one. And looks like they did fix it, because look at my stuff's all screwed up now. Did you see that? Look at it. You see my template's like doesn't look pretty. That they must have changed it. They must have changed it. It says this is good for me too. So they used to have to do that to have it appear properly. Let's see if they do it properly. Oh my God, they fixed it. Oh, you learned something today. So they fixed it. That was a big problem in the old Pandoc, and now they've actually fixed indentation. I am really happy about that. So I learned something today. There you go. So you do your template. It didn't used to do that properly. It was kind of screwed up. Anyway, you end up with documents that look nice and pretty, and they're all rendered the way you want. And then what? Then you can, see here, it says the default format requires the template tile. So that is a warning. The reason for that warning is because by default, Pandoc has decided to standardize on a lowercase t. And I don't like lowercase documents. I use, YAML things. We'll talk about it tomorrow. But I like uppercase title YAML things for stuff that I consider exported. And I like lowercase for things that are template based. So I use lowercase for private things that are more about style and layout. And I use uppercase things for actual data that I want to export and use. And honestly, I've been jaded. Not jaded, but I've been strongly influenced by how Go does things. So Go YAML uses uppercase for exported variables rather than an export keyword or something. And it uses lowercase for private members. And I love that. And in fact, by using uppercase, I can use Go directly on my YAML and marshal it. If you don't know what marshaling and unmarshaling is, I can unmarshal it directly into data structures that are exported. So for that reason, and plus I just think it's easier to read. A lot of people don't like that. It took me a while to get used to it. I was a big lowercase guy for a very long time. If you use the lowercase title, however, you will not get that warning. That warning that it gave you. And the warning that it's giving is because it's expecting there to be a title defined. Now, you'll notice too that my template is busted because why? Because I used uppercase title. Okay. So, but if I go back to uppercase title, it's a minor inconvenience for me. But make your own decision on that one. There's really no right way. I will say this, we're going to talk about coming up with kind of a standard set of metadata elements that I think is missing from all of this, that needs to be discussed. There are lots of, there's a group in Dublin actually that's put together a list of metadata standard names that's using card catalog systems and all sorts of things like that. And I know this is like really into the weeds on this stuff, but it's really important when it comes to like managing knowledge is what do we call the things. It's also the thing that took down the Semantic Web Initiative because it got too in the weeds and confusing. But at least for me, at least for my knowledge base, I've established a domain model, a set of names for my metadata types. And then, nobody else has to use my metadata types. You can use your own metadata types or, attributes for your own knowledge base. I think all knowledge bases should be able to define what those are. But I do think that something like README World, if we could at least agree to use title or lowercase title or something like that, then we can create our own localized search engines that use the metadata provided by the documents themselves, as long as it's trustworthy, rather than some sort of, search heuristic that is arbitrarily defined and, is guarded like a magic secret at Google. So if we can at least agree on that metadata. So anyway, how would I use that metadata? How would it be converted? The last thing to do in our conversion here is to just give our thing an output. So if you want to silence that, it's Q. Your site could be searched. Yes, it can't. No, the search is not here right now. No, not the case. So before you go judging me on my current site, the current version of RDBXGG is a thrown together copy of my previous version of the site that did have localized search capability, that I have been rebuilding for the last year, which is what got me on the stream. Actually, I was like, oh, I should probably even do this on the stream. So the first step for making localized searchability is you have to capture the metadata from the entire site. If you want to see me doing that, watch me coding on Saturday and Sundays when I'm not going off on whatever random thing I want to. That's the goal there, because I already know how to do it. I've already written the code for that and Go and other things. I'm actually trying to think about how to rework that. And so the step one of that is to get a metadata.json file. And then that metadata.json file can be pulled with a fetch and a service worker, and it can be locally searched like ViewPress does on its site. And a lot of that is influenced by that, but that's not anywhere for you to see right now. And it's not vaporware because I actually wrote it. I can show you the Go code where I do it. But I just have to get it all integrated into the RDBX.gg, which is my latest iteration on what I think is becoming more and more of a standard knowledge base that other people can model. So anyway, let's do this. Let's tell it to shut up. I don't remember what the pandoc silence is, so I'm going to go look. Pandoc silence. Quiet. Is it quiet? Is it Q? I thought it was Q. It might have to be its own switch. I think it might be Q. Nope. I can't remember the one to make it silent. You know what I'm going to do? I'm going to cheat. I'm going to look at my build script. So my build script, here it is. -so. Oh, dash quiet. As a document format. Do archivists agree? No. Do you know what the problem with the archivist is? Is that they struggle from not invented here syndrome. I swear to God, it's like one of the most frustrating things in the world. The academic community for archiving information, the closest thing I've ever seen them come to, and I've been studying this for 7 years, is they did the what's it called? Why is the spacing man right now? The Gutenberg Project. The Gutenberg Project is the closest thing anybody's ever come to having like universal knowledge. The people who do agree about it in the academic community are agreeing on Pandoc, and they tend to be, JGM is actually a philosophy instructor, but he made Pandoc because of all this problem. So, the problem with academia is that if you have this massive war about who invented the thing and whether it's like they don't think in practical terms. So I'm not going to go down that rabbit hole anymore. But I wish there were a standard for this. So the best thing you can do, not invented here syndrome. If you want a good example of that, read about how Michael Babbage had to like lobby with a whole bunch of other people to allow the use of the dot for multiplication in math. It's like a perfect example. Oxford was full of not invented here syndrome. They would not allow any other ideas from any other universities because it wasn't invented there. And it's like a disease within academia in particular, where they won't agree to something because they don't get the credit for the innovation. It's just stupid. So if we can get out of that thinking and say what is practically being applied across the board today, which is what JGM did, which is what Mark Gruber did. He's like, you know what? I don't like this HTML stuff. I want something that works better. He makes Markdown, says, I don't need to standardize it. You can use whatever you want. Just take my idea and build on it. And that's what we get Markdown. But the opposite of that is you end up without having any standard, right? So my basic standard is my derivation of what I have seen in like at least 12 different services that all agree on this one thing. And that's the closest thing you can get to a standard or a consensus. So, but I do believe Pandoc is driving that a lot, actually. So anyway, let's do this thing. It's quiet. Let's do quiet. It's dash quiet. And we'll shut up my little error about my thing. So we get this one. So now I get my titles in there. Looking down knowledge always... locking down knowledge is always stupid. Also the fact that still scientific articles that lock down behind a paywall, publishers get free label. Peter, you know what? The thing that you're talking about is exactly what Aaron Swartz died for. That's exactly what he died for. Freeing free knowledge that people were paying for behind corporate firewalls. That was freely public available information that was being controlled by corporations that wanted money. And so you watch that documentary, man, it will blow your mind. I mean, and he wrote Python scripts and everything that would pay the money to get the minimum, and then they would download the whole freaking database. And he didn't break any laws. He didn't break any laws doing it. And he published all the stuff on the internet, and he freed all this information that legally was free, but that the government had sold contracts to corporations to be able to provide through their paid gateways. And he says, fuck that, raised money, downloaded all some Python scripts and published it, and he got people pissed. Ended up dying for it. And I'm telling you, people that you control the knowledge, you control public opinion, you control everything. And we've got the free knowledge. We've got, I almost want to name a foundation after him and just like, you know, try to standardize this stuff in the best way that's not related to anybody's best idea. That's not related to who's going to get rich off of it. That's largely the ideas behind Creative Commons. And yeah, he didn't get Googled. He got, you know, government people. You got to watch the documentary. That's all I'm going to say. So anyway, it's just, if you want to understand where we are in terms of knowledge, you have to watch the Aaron Swartz documentary. I'm going to probably watch it on Saturday. It's totally free. Anyway, so we have this thing going down. And we have, so a link to the documentary. No, but I can show you right now. So it's I already showed you guys that at 15, he co-authored the Creative Commons license with Harvard law professor Lawrence Lessig. And that before he even co-created Reddit. Just such an amazing, the Internet's Own Boy, it's called. Internet's Own Boy. You watch. It's just historically, people are going to look back at Aaron, and they are going to be blown away. They're going to be blown away by him. He's going to be really big in history because he was so ahead of his time, just so freaking ahead of his time. So I'm going to give you. I'll share a link right now. Yep. It's a good thing to end on too. After we do our Pandoc conversion, you're seeing what we're doing here, so I don't need to show you that more. But there you go. There's a link to the movie. And so the guy at 3 years old, he was teaching his older brother how to read. I mean, you want somebody to look up to, you know, who like blows Elon Musk away? I mean, seriously. I already said this, but he couldn't see over the pulpit when he presented at the Creative Commons conference. He was in the chat rooms and nobody knew how old he was, and when they heard him talk, he had a squeaky like 13, 15-year-old voice. They're like, no way. It is such a great documentary. I cannot wait for you guys to see it. So yeah, anyway, I mean, his whole life is just so important for us to understand, especially today. All right, so how do we get around this rendering thing? So we're rendering it, and you know what really bothers me too? Nobody fucking knows who Aaron Swartz is. Nobody knows who he is. People go to university classes that talk about communications and they talk about, you know, like sociological things, and not a single person even talks about Aaron Swartz. You know why? Because the powers that be don't want you to talk about him. All right, so next thing here, I'm gonna put here. Yeah. All right, so we need to make this into a file. So that's the last thing we need to do before I stop ranting and end for the day. I have way past my allotment of swear words for this PG related stream. I apologize for that. This, as I've said before, let's do -O. As I've said before, this is super duper close to my heart, this topic. This whole week is this is a reason that I am in tech. I speak multiple foreign languages. I believe strongly in communication. I really think this is, if you go back, the first innovator did it. He changed his focus on Lord Electronics to promote the exchange of ideas between human beings. And our world is collapsing because we are not exchanging our ideas freely. and we're being controlled by those who would have us see what they want us to see. So there I go. I have my little index.html page. It's now been fully rendered as a page. I can put this line into a script and be done with it. In fact, why don't we make it so that it renders anything with Markdown in it? Not too hard, right? So let's do that. You guys remember how to make a script. And let's do, thank you. So let's do this. Let's do touch build, I guess. We could call it build. You could call it render, whatever you want to call it. Let's chmod u plus x, the build thing, to make it so it's runnable. Let's put some little bit of code in here. We already learned last week that you know, anything we do on the command line is a script. So we can just turn it into a script, bin bash. And now I have this thing here. But wouldn't it be great if we did anything that started with MD? How about star? How about 2 stars? What does 2 stars do, people? If I put 2 stars, what does it do if I have globstar set? If I have globstar set and I have 2 stars, I can put this, I can do this. I can do /build, recursive, yep. And now what? Now I have 2 index.html pages. So that's not good. Once again, this is why you should not have... In fact, let's do this. Let's make sure we only render README files. Maybe we want a markdown file that's an example, right? So let's do this. README.md. README.md, and that'll render all of the README files. So let's put another, let's make a directory for it. Make dir another, and we'll move another into another.md into another. And we'll call it readme.md. Why? Because readme.md is a default. It's basically the index.html of Markdown. So it's just, think of it that way. And we'll go ahead and do that. And now I can do this. I can do run, you know, build. And now I get, I can even open it up with links. I can say links, and I can say I want to read my index.html. And it will make it, yeah, so there we go. This paragraph is a link to something. Oh, that's because I screwed up. So did I already mess up my readme? No, there we go. So what's wrong with my build? Is my build not working? Build. Remove index.html. Oh, I think I know what's wrong. I know what's wrong. So we are, yeah, our build script's still broken, isn't it? Well, I'll let you fix that. You guys can figure out how to fix it. Or streams it. So the 2 stars says recursively change every one, but I actually realized we got ourselves in trouble here. Why? Because I'm actually making them all into this one. So I'm kind of going ahead of myself, but I was planning on doing this another day, but I'll show you what's going on here. So this, okay, so this build script does one thing only. Let's keep it one thing at a time. And let's go here. So we've got level 1. Here's a really long blah, 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 blah. All right, so, but that didn't do anything to our another, right? So this is where our shell scripting ability comes in that we didn't get to last week. We didn't get there all the way. I feel bad about we didn't finish, but we actually want to do 2, so we could do another one, right? So really what we want to do is we want to have another /index.html, and we want another /readme. But I'm doing this on purpose just so you guys can probably figure out where I'm going with this. Now that will actually build both of them. Slash is a problem. I'm going to cut it here in a bit, but all right, so you guys see what's going on here? So now we should have, I'm going to open up in links. Yep, there's my thing. Links, another, and I can, there's my directory, but I'm another index.html, and I get the other one. So we have it the way it should be. All right, so why is that important? Because the next stage with the build script is something that I haven't taught you yet, and that's why I'm actually hesitant, and I'm gonna stop. I'm not gonna teach you the next step, but I'm gonna put a challenge out to you. Those of you who have gotten into your bash scripting, how would you write, and the answer is the build script on rdbx.gg if you want to see the answer, but how would you recursively build an index.html file for every subdirectory and have it write it in the right place, right? And not do the error that I did just earlier. The error I did earlier was it was building everything. It was just replacing the main index.html with every single one that it built instead of making an index.html for each one, not macros and Vim. You want to get punched? So let's do this. So for So there is another way, obviously. Do you know what it is? I'm going to give you a hint. I'm going to show you the answer really quick. So, so I'm going to show you what the answer is. All right, here's the answer. Okay. This is a way overly complicated answer, but make a render function, right? And then build the directory passed to the render function and then loop through it. Now you can make a manifest if you want, or you can do it directly. This one uses the find command to make a manifest that includes all the files that don't agree with, well, you could do pi too, but no. This makes a file, this says find all the files that have the name read.md that do not begin with an underscore and print out their full path names. And then sort them. And it puts that into a manifest, and then the manifest is looped through. We render it, we loop through everything in the manifest. That's what this is. And we render each item in the manifest. So if you want to, and the other thing to show here is that this ampersand causes it to fire off everything in a way that doesn't take time because it puts it into the background. It could be verbose also. Yes, you can do that. Mine's pretty verbose. Yeah, when I do, this is the one that I run, and it sits around and waits after it starts up everything. So there is the answer. There is one answer, actually. There'll be many more, but if you want to try it, go ahead and do that. It's about 2:10. I'm going to go ahead and end. I would love to raid Chris back, but he's not around to raid. So who should we raid, people? You guys have any ideas? People we can raid? Let's take a look. Twitch. I don't like doing Twitch. I need to make a Twitch bottom. A Twitch tail. That's what somebody said. Is it Naysayer 88? Nah, he's like too high. We could raid CM Griffin again. I haven't raided him in a while. Is he on? Is CM Griffin on? I mean, I like spreading the love, you know. It's like I'm not married to anybody. Live Overflow. We haven't raided Live Overflow for a while. Who raid the White House? I'm okay with CM Griffin. What else do you guys have to raid? Who else do you have to raid here? I probably want to raid. Is CM Griffin on? Are you sure he's on, Johnny? He is on. All right, let's go. I mean, I haven't done him in a while, so Twitch raid CM Griffin. I mean, you guys are all building an 8-bit computer. I kind of want to see that myself. So sorry, we'll do Griffin another day. I've watched him before. Live Overflow. Oh boy. Raid Live Overflow. Oh, is he? Oh, I'm sorry. John Games is awesome too. You know what? I like rating young. I've got to change this and make it lower. The Twitch by default only gives you the top people. In order to get the non-top people, you have to grab the whole list and take the end of the list. So it's like a multi-page query. If you guys want to show how to do queries, this is actually one of the MMPs, the mnemonic mini projects that I'm working on for RWXGG. And I'm super jazzed about that. Oh, how much time do we have? The top 10 drops off fast. It really does, you know, and that's not really fair. I would rather raid small people than big people. I have no problem raiding big people. Adam's great. Naysayer's great. Everybody's great. But I really like, I really like raiding other raiding smaller people. It's just so much more fun when you sneak up on them. You sneak up on them, you're going to do the raid. So, help make this section. I hope so. I mean, I got lots to do that. Yeah, right now I'm going to go do my yoga, and then just so you guys know, I don't like Lodash. Thanks, Zeros. Are you taking off? Yep. All right. So I'm going to go ahead and stop the stream. It's been great to see you people, and I'll be I don't know if I'll be back on tonight. I might be. If I do, I'm always a little bit less formal when I'm not here during the day. Thanks for coming by though.